So hello everybody, and welcome back to some really great WARNO action here as we're going back into Division 1 and we're jumping into the first quarterfinal, the third quarterfinal. We already had the first half on the weekend, then my microphone died, and now we're back with a new microphone. Well, it's the same type of microphone, but a new version of it. And we have Fortitude fans versus Stahlbrecher in game number 1 versus Griffon and Mix90 as the second game here. So this should be pretty exciting as we have a really interesting pick and ban phase here as well. Not so much from Stahlbrecher here, who picked divisions that all fit into his mechanized, armored, like more towards the lighter armor kind of division playstyle. But on the other side, we have similarly mechanized and armored divisions out of Fortitude Fence, who is more known for his air dominance, and his air dominance stacks haven't been banned, like no 6 US banned or so, no first Canadian banned either. So Fortitude Fence fighting Stahlbrechers with his own weapons, and this is also a bit weird because so far Fortitude Fence hasn't lost against tank divisions, but he has played quite often as the lighter division in those matchups. So I'm interested to see how this will go out here, and this is a really classic matchup, isn't it? All right.
Yeah, I am so excited at this matchup that I just ran through a class door, leaving an imprint of my nose into the door. That is how excited I am to see these games. And Stahlbrecher here bringing out 8th US. And Aim Ducey, another league player, though on a lower level, recently claimed that 8th is an absolute powerhouse on Chandra. Chandra specifically being a slow map, so 8th US being a slower, more expensive division, and and there not being any immediate critical breakthroughs that an enemy could manifest or achieve here. Maybe Aim Ducey has something going on there with the LRS and Bradleys being expensive, though very effective ways of charting out the opener battle lines, and then the transition from the cheaper tanks, the M60s and standard model M1s, into the more heavier M1A1s in the late game. Maybe this is finally the promised map for 8th US. Whereas Fortitude Fence bringing out 8th US's, I'd say cousin, second Panzer Grenadier. Second Panzer Grenadier being brought out here in reasonably standard manner. There are forward deployment infantry. Basically everything in second is either the same or slightly weaker than with 8th US, but second Panzer Grenadier compensates by having, first of all, infantry fighting vehicles, and second of all, forward deployment. And everything else is just a little bit cheaper, just a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit more expendable. And so Fortitude Fence, despite being known as an airspan player, is now trying to do looking at this deployment, pretty moderate aggro into the point of Bravo. There are two modern main battle tanks, the Leopard 283 as well as the Command Leopard. And those do, for the moment, outclass Stahlbrecher's tank deployment. But outside of heavy investment into recon and a limited forward deployment component, where do you think Fortitude Fence is putting all their points? Because second UK does have a pretty powerful air component.
Yeah, second Pet Grenadier does bring some Harriers that can dive with quite a heavy payload. The Tornadoes bringing a decent bomb load from above as well. This was played on the previous patch, so high altitude bombers aren't quite as efficient as they are now on the current patch, but they are still pretty good in the form of the Tornadoes. I wouldn't expect anything right from the get-go. Maybe a fighter to stop any enemy kind of engagements or any helicopter engagements against this forward deployment. And yeah, we have a really good read here, I believe, on the tank situation from Fortitude Fans, because Stahlbrecher has deployed tanks against the against the Leo 1A5s. Like the M60A3 together with an M1 Abrams, that is the perfect counter to a couple of Leo 1A5s. The M1 Abrams tanking the shots, the M60 helping out, making it two guns that fire at the Leo 1s, and you can kill them off quite quickly there. but both are pretty inefficient when it comes to penetrating the 16 frontal armor of a Leo 2, and they are not that much cheaper at that point. So I believe this is a really good investment and read of the enemy here by Fortitude fans with the double Leo 2A3 opener. Going a bit off the rail there. This is not the normal start with second Panzer Grenadier. You usually see maybe one Leo 2, but usually a good couple of Leo 1A5s or Leo 1A1s here. Neither of those on the battlefield here. Both sides focusing on the south. The north is pretty limited in deployment by both sides, especially by Fortitude fans, with only one Pulse Mega off there going there. Giving up potentially Hotel, giving up potentially Golf if Stahlbrecher can read that, but obviously can always come back there with Harriers if the enemy can't bring enough air dominance with long range AA of iHawks or strong usage of the F-16s.
Yeah, I'm thinking Fortitude Fence, especially with this very limited forward deployment opener, which kind of means that Fence wants to take these positions but doesn't want to immediately do an infantry attack. I think the goal here, as we can see the recon helicopters buzz up the LRS Special Forces, is to start killing enemy units early. I think that's the point, that you spot them and you kill them, and then you start the game by trading well. And that is especially on this map where it's difficult to get a breakthrough. Immediately we can see the two Harriers. These are the Harrier HE2s, the mounts with the massive bomb loads. And number one, dropping out, destroying an LRS, not getting fired upon. And even the second Harrier is pulling away. Maybe expecting the iHawk to be immediately deployed, which it wasn't, but still, better to be safe than sorry. And now there already exists both the iHawk defense for Fortitude Fence, as well as a starting of a mech force. Gepard with two Leopards, Luke's around here, and the Milans could join this attack in the first few minutes. And yeah, I actually really like this for Fence. Really, really like trying to force the enemy to start playing a little bit out of their comfort zone by trying to force out immediate opener fights, but outside of infantry.
And we have a couple of quick reinforcements here from Stahlbrecher, realizing that the south will be under pressure. Is in a lot of trouble in the center, though. Losing the LRS there to the bombing leaves the TOW 2 team, which is a really expensive ATGM team. 95 points here. Open to the Fallschirmjägers that start hunting it down. No unit there in position to really help out. The Bradley trying to rotate around, but will be too late, likely, for the TOW 2. TOW 2 stays alive just for the second. And the Bradley at least starts engaging here. Might be able to hunt down the Fallschirmjägers with the Rangers together in a bit, but the TOW 2 for now goes down. And ooh, big losses here of the M60 already. M1 Abrams still around, but the Leos find their first victim and surprise Stahlbrecher there a bit, maybe, with the double Leo 2 just shooting that tank down immediately. So the pressure is real here on Stahlbrecher himself. Stahlbrecher, at the meantime, doing something that he and I did a lot when we played 2v2 on this map, and that is sending a Fireteam 84 for some real line action. You have great roads on the side of this map for infiltration towards the enemy spawns, especially the northern spawn on the red side and the southern spawn on the blue side. And that's exactly where this Fireteam 84 is going. Meanwhile, Rangers now find the Fallschirmjägers. They are the better infantry squad, but Harriers already finding another Ranger in the north. Seed Tornado here, keeping the enemy back as well. And the iHawk obviously has to be turned off there. So, Fortitude fans not playing an airborne division or a light infantry division, but still, you can't get the Air Force out of this guy. Obviously, playing with a heavy air segment in second Panzer Grenadier as well.
Yeah, I mean the Seed Tornado here is keeping the PVAT, keeping the iHawk radar off, but Stahlbrecher has already bought and is flying around with an LGB plane and is not microing it now with the Seed supported Tornado. AA is going down and trying to catch this. It's a really expensive, and it goes down. Oh, that's huge. The F-111 was a minute's worth of income, and it basically meant it was the way for Stahlbrecher to break through these tanks. The standard M1s are weaker than the Leopard 2A3s, and even now the Harrier HE2 is coming and destroying a Harrier, a Ranger, which is still a great kill,
And the Ihawk
though not as
turning on
crucial.
too late, being out of position there, firing a missile towards this tornado seed, but not getting a hit. So not a single plane hit here for Fortitude fans, and he already found some great victims. The F-111, a massive misbuy here by Stahlbrecher. Like, you should know Fortitude fans better than expecting no fighter opposition there from the get-go. And the Ihawk, usually a classic opener in every deck, he has it in as well. Like, trying to get an F-111 LGB in there was really foolish in my eyes from Stahlbrecher, and he paid big by also not microing it at all when the tornado actually came for it. Like, that was a big mistake as well, and that leaves him quite behind when it comes to the tempo of the game. So, thanks to the massive air investments on Fortitude's side, Stahl, for now, is still on an okay footing on the ground. He just needs to stop the snowballing of these air victories that Stahlbrecher has, that Fortitude fans has found, and that means getting another Ihawk here and playing defensive for the while. Point-wise, it's nearly even, so not a big issue there for Stahlbrecher yet. But he has to be really careful to not start losing more units and let uh, the ball here get really into the rolling for Fortitude fans.
Yeah, I mean, Stahl has a pretty solid front line of recon. There are aircraft troopers, which have a extra point of recon with the security trait. There's an ACAV, there are scouts, and even the front line, at least for the moment, was pretty, or at least used to be very close by. So Stahl having that F-111 waiting if any of the Leopards would pop out and then get immediately taken out, that could have been a great piece, a momentum piece when all of the rest of the units could start attacking. But Fortitude Fence just completely played around that. And now with Fence reading the room and doing a tactical retreat.
Oh, the HE Bomber
I
finding the Ihawk,
it.
getting the kill.
Oh,
Classic Fortitude fans action here. Harrier actually dropping on top of it as well to really make sure. But yeah, this is classic Fortitude fans action. Meanwhile, Fireteam 84 had the wrong rules of engagements. Killed 3 Unimogs on the way out, but wasted all the 84 ammo on that. So in general, still paid off big time there. 35 points, killing off 60 points of transport plus the full transport. So nearly a 3 times investment, but it could have potentially been even bigger here for Stahlbrecher. And now he can't stop the transport Panzer Fuchs coming by next. And yeah, he needs better air defense than that. A single Ihawk never gonna stop Fortitude fans from bombing it. Like, we have seen that time and time again. Nobody knows better when to commit onto the enemy air defense and really smells the blood in the water in an air engagement and an air warfare than Fortitude fans. And he does it once more here. And Stahlbrecher now in a lot of trouble. Needs to get his air game up here already. Needs to get some fighters involved behind his AA as well. Instead, invest into artillery. I still believe that's once more too early. That's just a similar situation to the F-111. Like, he is planning on ahead before he is ready to actually deal with what Fortitude fans tries to throw at him. And Seaplane here doing a good job keeping stuff busy. Now a TOW 2 goes down without the Harrier being shut down. And these Harriers are just insane value if you don't start killing them. They are one of the big reasons why this division has been top of the meta for such a long time. And yeah, they do it here once more.
Yeah, second wave of Harriers, this time the Rocket Harriers coming in and seeing how little there is. I mean, Harriers get one shot by Ihawks. That is the counter here. And oh no, the Tornado actually revealing the Ihawk with the rockets going after the Eye. This is massive. This Fortitude Fence is just completely playing the perfect game of Fortitude against Stahlbrecher, really just trying to start building up a mid game. The mid game of 8th with the expensive units, with the wide front lines, with the Ihawks and the M110s. All of this is for naught if this constant stream of losses cannot be stopped. And now even Fortitude is sending infantry Panzer Grenadiers to push and find targets for the Harriers, and meanwhile the Milans are part or joining in with the mech blob, and the mech blob is gonna be growing, and it's gonna have numbers that 8th just cannot deal with organically. They need to either get good engagements, or the M110 really has to start doing something. And as I say, this M110 firing at an empty position for the moment.
Yeah, the 84 team here actually had potential to be even way bigger than it was for Stahlbrecher here, but he mispositioned it. He positioned it outside of the range where it can capture enemy transports and enemy supply, so it never regained its ammo. Otherwise, he could have captured 3 supply trucks by now. He could have killed off 3-4 more units on the way out, and then his position here would be a good bit better. He played that, like the idea there was great. The execution was just a bit flawed. Like he should have moved it into a slightly better position where it can shoot in enemy rears, then it can maybe even kill tanks with the 84. And he just mispositioned that a bit. And his air management here is terrible. Like, you have to call that out. Against Fortitude fans, you have to be better prepared for airplay than this currently from Stahlbrecher. And that was my worry getting into the series. Stahl's airplay is not the top, and he is really good with the mechanized blades. Like, and he knows how to get advantages on the flanks. That's what the 84 team in the rear showed, and his engagements here when it comes to taking fights with the ground units isn't terrible, or it's actually pretty good. But you can't beat Fortitude fans with just AA on the ground. You can't beat Fortitude fans with just airplanes in the air either. You need a combined effort, and you need to play it defensively, not F-111s trying to fly into Fortitude fans' 2nd Panzer Grenadier air tap.
Yeah, the Stahlbrecher's reinforcements here are largely infantry. There are recon infantry, special forces infantry, and there's some supply also coming up here. But all of this is it's pretty weak source tempo wise. The infantry is going to try to set up some kind of a front line. But meanwhile, if you look at the reinforcements of Fortitude Fence, Fence is buying in Martyrs, Fence is buying Leopard 1s, Fence is buying even more recon to get targets for this growing force of mech. And even though there are TOW2s, there are M60s, even though one in the southwest just got tagged by a Milan 2, the no amount of infantry can deal with a well organized mech blob without tank support. And the Rangers Dragon are an expensive way to hold a front line, and they could very well pay off if Fortitude made some bad decisions. But it's just as possible that there's going to be Harrier rockets that are going to destroy half of the Ranger squad and leave the rest for the Martyrs and the Panzer Grenadiers to chew through.
Yeah, and currently the Leopard 2s are just there to bait out somewhat expensive units like the Bradley Recons, like the TOW2s, and then throw some Harriers at it. And so far, Stahlbrecher hasn't killed a single plane here. Fortitude fans has been able to bomb air AA time and again, and it just shows you that like Stahlbrecher is playing this as if he would play against any other 2nd Panzer Grenadier player, and that's just not how you can expect Fortitude fans to play against you. Like, he will always air spam, and that's a curse and a gift at the same time for the opponents, because they have to deal with the best air play and air micro in the game. But also, they know that it's coming, so you can prepare for it. And we have seen Fortitude fans fail in the past with him overinvesting into the air and enemies starting to derail it. But so far in this game, that hasn't happened. We have a decent amount of Chaparrals now on the battlefield. And if we would see 1 or 2 F-16s, I think the situation here would be a lot better. 2nd Panzer Grenadier has amazing aircraft, but it doesn't have endless numbers of them. It's still a mechanized division. It's not an airborne division. Its air slots don't come for free. If you put them all in, then eventually you will run out of ground units, so you need to start getting some kills. Finally, 2 Harriers going down here. They did a bit more damage here, so for the first time, a bit of a dent put into Fortitude fans' Air Force. The question is it too late on the ground? And can Fortitude fans now really pull the trigger and just roll over Bravo here? There are still 2 M1 Abrams here. The Leo 2A3s are the better tanks on the other side, but with defensive plays, with a couple of TOW2s that maybe get some good hits, this is still something that Stahlbrecher could turn around. I would argue he is the better mechanized player on the ground, so if he micros that correctly, that still could go his way, but he really needs to start getting a couple more of these planes. There comes the next Harrier. Chaparral aiming up. Pivot. Getting around. He doesn't get a hit there yet. Reveals himself. Fortitude fans not bringing any not bringing any artillery to hit the AA is surprising to me. But the Harrier here really right now just there to bait out all the AA, and now come the enemies. Chaparral's not moving. Mistake here by Stahlbrecher. You should always directly move after firing in a situation like this. And Harriers get the first one. Harriers get the second one. One Harrier at least goes down. Seaplane doesn't have a target here, but the other Harrier will get out alive. And 2 Chaparrals for a Harrier. That's a good trade for Fortitude fans once more. And the AA of Stahlbrecher really starting to run thin. And I'm so surprised that we don't see F-16s here.
Yeah, I mean, Stahl is very busy buying more infantry, and maybe that is that is the way that this actually ends up getting solved. Personally, I would be more afraid of the constant destruction of recon units. The Bradleys got taken out in a duel against 2 Milans. The scouts have been targeted any time they push too far because the Fern sharpshooter being in good positions. And even now, the LRS is moving up here, but Stahlbrecher is constantly running out of the units that actually need to support the eventual M1A1 transition of the actually great tanks. Here we're seeing the overpriced HE2 bomber, one with the cheapo Strike Eagle with a 4 heat seekers and a massive bomb load, but also being very expensive.
Yeah, but it gets another AA piece, and there's currently no AA on the front line. Now there comes the first F-16, but that comes way too late. Like, you need to have the mix of the planes so that seaplanes can't hang around forever, so that bombers like the Harriers might catch a missile on the way out, so that tornadoes on the other side might have to dive deep on you and get caught by your chaparrals whilst trying to catch your fighter on the way out. And stuff like that, but having only AA, having only fighters always makes it easy to deal with, and especially in the hands of such an expert bombing menace like Fortitude fans. And the situation here on the front line is dire now. Like, a good couple more key units have been targeted, and the artillery of Stahlbrecher is nowhere near doing the same damage. Fortitude fans keeps on getting a bigger front line here, and this first game here is looking really, really rough for Stahlbrecher, and he has, I believe, one more like section of AA units coming out before he is completely out of AA units. And if they don't start to turn this around, it's completely gone. And even if they start turning around the air war, he still will be behind on the ground war in a big margin.
Yeah, this is the first M1A1 is coming in for Stahlbrecher, and Stahl is sending it up to the middle north, the Charlie Golf section of the front line. And meanwhile, a Harrier going out there and nearly destroying an aircraft trooper, revealing the chaparrals, but no bombers and no artillery up for Fortitude to actually punish this. And now it seems like an attack is happening. The recon snipers are moving in first, followed up by some veteran Panzer Grenadiers and a tank leader, which is already getting tagged out by a side shot by M1 Abrams.
Stahlbrecher now starting to get some values here. M1 Abrams under fire by a lot of ATGM, but good micro there. Harrier HE coming in, is not on target there and gets shot down. Chaparral's getting a kill, and this is what Stahlbrecher needed here. This is finally a bit of breathing room, getting a kill onto one of the important planes, reducing the air menace a bit, and it's always a snowball in the air. So starting to take a bit of a dent there is pretty important there, and the kill on the CV tank, the kill on a couple of martyrs here on the open field, equalizing the ground situation in the south without losing any of the M1s. This is why Stahl is in this quarterfinal. Ground play of his is superb, and if he can get the air situation under control, he doesn't need to win it. He doesn't need to get his aircraft onto the enemy. He just needs to stop the air menace and then get his M110s online and outplay Fortitude fans in the tank micro. He has the better tanks, so if the M1A wants the higher number of those tanks as well. So that in a 20-minute game still can do it. He just really needs to stop the F4Fs, the Tornadoes, and the Harriers keeping coming in and getting free kills without getting shut down.
Yeah, the flank, the section of the front line where the M1A1s are moving in only has Leopard 1A5s and only 2 of them. And artillery just took out a frontline unit, and there's also not the best anti-tank net. There are only 2 Milan vehicles, one of them just 2 Milan twos. one of them just unloading. And with the amount of mech rifles, dragon, and aircraft troopers, with some lighter vehicles to bait out the shots from the Milan 2s, I think the Abramses could very well break through the north middle flank of both. Now, the problem is that even though the middle town is currently a no man's land, Fortitude doesn't really have the infantry to actually secure it, which means that Fortitude cannot just try to drive through it and attack the enemy's flank. Okay, now here comes another wave. Now 2 seed planes with the old generation
and he's
strike
on
people.
target. M1 Abrams goes down immediately. Chaparral's not getting any hit, and once more F-16's absent from the fight. Once more, Stahl maybe a bit too timid about the air control of, like, being a bit too fearful of his own air management compared to Fortitude fans, but you can't win these air fights without fighters. And you have to keep in mind that you keep them defensive, don't overextend, but you have to use them. There is no way of stopping this with just ground AA if the other side is in the hands of Fortitude fans. I'm really surprised that we don't see any M110s on the side of Fortitude fans so far, but he gets another good runs here in the south, cleans out all the infantry in the open field, and the M1 kill there pretty big. Stahlbrecher now currently moving around his M110s there a bit wildly. Not quite sure what he is so worried about that he is rotating them around that far between salvos, but he hasn't shot in a while now and has microed them quite a bit as well, keeping his attention away from getting any value on the front line. He still, like, hit the good news for Stahlbrecher is there hasn't been any point tick for 48 fans. That's mostly down to the map. But the bad news is he is far from getting a tick of his own here.
Yeah, I mean, there's if you look at the defenses on Golf, all of these red units are pretty tightly snuck into that forest, and none of them have actual proper sight lines. At the moment, no Fortitude defense units are like spotting the front line of around Charlie. And with Stahlbrecher having that mech rifles dragon in there, it could be that Stahl could have a momentary tactical advantage. The problem is that the air attacks are just constantly chipping away of Stahl's front line and are probably drawing away the resources actually needed to do this mid-game attack. And like, even as you said about the F-16s, even if the F-16s aren't as great as Tornadoes, even if they can't stop these attacks, the damage that they could do with the long-range missiles, the damage that they could do in intercepting the enemy planes or preventing them from reaching their targets, that does actually start building up, and it could have supported the buildup of the Chaparrals and the Ihawks. And as it never happened, and once again the Tornado
getting the IO killed. F-16 finally comes out. We had a good kill here with M110s on the Leo 2, and we have 4 M1 Abrams here, 3 of them being, no, 2 of them being M1A1s, 2 of them being M1 Abrams in the south now. With the kill on the Leo 2A3 with the artillery, there's only 1 remaining Leo 2A3 in the south for 48 fans. So this is manageable, but Stahlbrecher now overextending, losing an F-16 here. You can't dive here. He's a bit over eager there, trying to allow his units to push, but you need to come in when the enemy is actually bombing you, not trying to push into the enemy airspace, especially if the enemy has Ihawks as well. And that now leaves all the fighters dead for Stahlbrecher, meaning that Fortitude fans knows that he can dive on you, and he is doing so in the north, meaning that now Stahlbrecher has to get out of his AA range and really push in the south because he can't stop the push in the north, and he can't allow to get ticked down on. So he is under a lot of pressure. His M110s might still be able to find a lot of value here, and he has had the better ground engagements. Issue is, there wasn't that many ground engagements so far, and there was a lot of air engagements that he nearly all lost.
Yeah, now with the attack happening here and blue units finally reaching and an enemy zone, the Tornado IDS is in a really bad position. There's barely any air cover for Stahl, and with 3 HE bombers out here and 3 heavy tanks pushing this attack, looking pretty bad for Stahl. Fortitude fans is counterattacking, and the artillery is striking right where you want it, stunning out the Marder and not doing any damage to the Leopard 2s, though. Leopard 2s here facing down the more powerful tanks of the Americans for the moment.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these M1 Abrams, and Fortitude fans not having the bombers right there. Oh, F4 not getting its bomb dropped off. Big mistake by Fortitude fans. The Tornado gets its bombs out. The M1A1 is not the target, though. It's targeting the pivot, planning for future engagements instead of targeting the Abrams themselves right now. All the bombers of Fortitude fans failing. The first big failure of Fortitude fans in the usage of airplanes. He could have, with the right strikes, killed all these Abrams, or at least made it so that his Leo attacks can kill them off later. But instead, he lost his Leo 2A3. He lost most of his Leo 1s, and 3 M1 Abrams still remaining alive. One of them going down here, but 2 coming out of this. He still has his own. And at the same time, Fortitude fans not microing his infantry units in the north. The mech rifle tracking there, doing massive wonders and holding the village, getting a +2 for Stahlbrecher. That big one misplay in the air here, costing Fortitude fans. He had 3 bombers not dropping at the right targets, or not dropping at all. And we have a GG call here, as he just lost too much in that struggle. As Stahlbrecher was behind in points. Like, the point situation here might still be able to bring around, but don't be fooled, guys. These 900-point difference, they were all, like, Stahlbrecher was still ahead on the ground because all of those were in planes, and there was not that much on the ground actually left here. Both sides lost a lot, and Stahl with a good repair and with M1 Abrams remaining, whilst on the other side, Fortitude fans had none of his Leo 2A3 remaining, pushing into this advantage and pushing into the 4 rear zones. Like, retaking the zone maybe is possible, but Stahl was ahead far enough that he was able to go back onto the defensive. The failed northern attack, the failed airstrikes, Fortitude fans getting defeat here, clutching it out of the claws of victory. And Stahlbrecher coming in just in the right moment, seeing that one opportunity and seizing it with an amazing ground attack. That execution of the M1A1 push was great, but it was also massive failure of the Fortitude fans in that one decisive airstrike that he needed to nail.
Yeah, it was I was looking at the units and seeing what units were selected by Fortitude at that moment as the planes were coming in. There were micro that was happening with the ground units and I recognized that there was the moment when you needed to click the planes away, and the planes just went over. They lost the sight, and I don't think it was impossible for Stahlbrecher to necessarily win that game. I mean, there were still some airplanes up there. A bunch of AA had been destroyed by all throughout the game, and there probably were a few smoke rounds with a few tanks that could have actually tried to press it. But I do agree with the GG here for Fortitude fans. Fortitude fans played it safely in his own way. Did not try to get a tick, did not try to win in a traditional manner. Instead, tried to just trade as well as possible and avoid the kinds of late game tank attacks that finally worked out for Stahlbrecher. You can see there's a tank in the if you look at the kill feed right at the end of the game, there is a series of so many blue kills, so many strategic kills happening right at the moment. And probably if you're Stahlbrecher, you're looking at your own division, your deck is weaker because you have all of those planes, having both the Harriers as well as the Seeds, as well as the fighter planes, as well as the F4 bombers. Those take away from your infantry and your artillery and your tank capacity, and that's just a fact. We didn't see Leopard 1A1s ever at any point, and yeah, probably in that moment felt like, well, damn, my strategy failed. I did everything. I succeeded. I had good luck, but in the end, the safer strategy of gaining a little bit of tick early on in the game and supporting that tick with the airplanes would have maybe been the safer for the last 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I think there was the moment where he tried to get that tick, but that was the other one big moment where Stahlbrecher's good ground micro shined through. And really, this game perfectly represented the strengths and the weaknesses of both of these players, and the big like opposites that these two play styles represent of Stahlbrecher and Fortitude, even though they played such similar divisions. Stahlbrecher here with great ground micro, with great looks on the objective, and on the other side, Fortitude fans with fantastic airplay, like just getting kill after kill, but in the moments where he needed to have his ground consolidated and needed to have the cohesion just up to repel that M1A1 push, he wasn't in the right spots. He was caught out, and then he kind of panicked in the reaction. And Stahlbrecher maneuvered through it just well enough to get the victory here. Well-deserved victory for Stahlbrecher with the final push, but also a great air show here for 40 defense, and Stahl really has to step up the air defenses for the future games if he doesn't want to get into a similarly position where he needs to make one push work or go down. And I'm pretty excited for game number 2. The matchup there, a pretty interesting one as well, as we're gonna have 5th Blinde, one of Stahlbrecher's best divisions, against 7th Panzer, one of 40 defense. Like, that is an armored division that we have seen a couple of times out of him in the past, because it also has a really cheap air tap, plus a really cheap mechanized force. So this is also a classic matchup. Pretty excited for it. Mount River is going to be the map. That's a map 40 fans has been excelling at as well. And yeah, short break, guys, and then we're gonna be back with the second game in this series. So here we return. Game number 2, Stahlbrecher versus Fortitude fans. And in this best of 3, Stahlbrecher now on match point on Mount River. And before I jump in, guys, let's have a quick sidestep here to the Matcherino, guys, where you can support the prize pool of this tournament. The best part about it, you don't even have to pay anything. All you have to do is click the contribute the claim code button up here to add money to the prize pool completely for free. Big shout out to Tom Wigging here, coming around with $50 lately, getting us to $663 by now, as we had a good couple of big contributions in this season already. And the winner of this matchup here is in the top 4, and with that is in the money. So Stahlbrecher 1 game away here of making some dollaroos, and by this point a couple of decent dollaroos out of WARNO League. But let's see if Fortitude defense can't maybe stop that with the 7th here, and with a big tank push coming out on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, some people would say that Fortitude Fence doesn't have a single cell of tank spam in its body, but we're seeing otherwise here. We're seeing a double coup with 4 tanks, 2 of them being T55 fire support tanks, and 2 of them being T72N standard medium tanks, a little bit on the weaker side, but absolutely overpowering to the AMX-30s, and 2 of which are coming in to challenge them in the middle. Mount River, the tank fight openers are very predictable. People need to prepare for them. They want to prepare for them, but quite often they don't want to actually have those tank fights because the risks in trying to push through too early are too great. Stahl is going to have a somewhat of a recon advantage, I think, despite Fortitude sending in the planes, because the VLRA 50s can shoot down some of the helicopters, and the Dragon Paras are going to stay around and provide the GSR support, GSR recon for the rest of the game. Stahl doing a very standard opener, not too much of anything, not too little of anything, and really the only thing that is exceptional here is that oh, wait, no, Fortitude Fence is going straight up the northern road. Fortitude is not going into the middle, is not playing standard despite the standard unit combination. No, this is a right hook from on the edges of the river, and is trying to basically get the numbers advantage early on. The T55s are going to be excellent in early fights because they provide 2 extra like tank guns, first of all, but also the machine guns, the medium machine guns, all of the stuff that isn't really that relevant in the larger scale of things necessarily, but in the opener they can mean the difference between winning and losing, of not being able to push through and being able to push through. And the Vab Mephistos, the heavy ATGMs, and the Brennuses, all of them are waiting for a middle attack. And it seems like Fence is okay sacrificing the X-ray zone for the enemy for the moment, uh, to be able to get into those positions in the northern side.
Yeah, it seems like he saw the, the conquest of India that we had in our last stream, and he saw that documentary and was like, I can be a conqueror of India as well. Seems to be easy. And just rallies everything down there. He might have misinterpreted the lessons that we learned there. India is conquerable. It is by no means easy though. But yeah, the 5th days forces are all everywhere but in the path of that T-72, T-55 push. At the same time, the AMX-10 is a really maneuverable unit, and it can easily start to get onto your supply lines towards Bravo if you just abandon that section of the map and leave it open. Same time, Lima in the south is pretty open as well, and if you ever run into a forest where there's 1 or 2 units of Apilas sitting in, you are in big troubles as well. So this is a really risky play, but you wouldn't expect it any other way out of Fortitude fans. If he does stuff on the ground, it's never quite the normal standard either. And yeah, we usually see a lot of air spam from him. I still would expect a good couple of planes in this game, but this mechanized force is a really cool attempt out of the normality of WARNO gameplay as well. We will see how good it actually is going to be though.
Yeah, and Seventh does have a famously strong tab of ground attack planes, especially good against fighting vehicles. And Stahl is recognizing everything. Stahl is really pushing and taking some free ground. You love to see it. You love to say the VLRA and the Grenadier Voltigeurs just going out there and taking the free ground when it's given to him. And the best case scenario here for Stahl is that this tank attack is not going to fight anything, but instead is going to be slowly contained. Commandos are getting quick deployed via helicopters to hold the front line. Grenadier Voltigeurs and Milan 2s are already deployed and moving into position. And meanwhile, the Brennuses could theoretically be threatening the reinforcement roads or even the back point of Bravo for Fence.
MX-10 gets shut down here, fired a shot, missed against the T-72s, and with yellow flare movement here of Fortitude fans, fantastic with it. Immediately seeing the tank after shooting and getting the shot back at it, and the T-72s and T-55s coming in here, assisted by good recon play in the rear as well, so no easy ambush here for the Prentices and Mephistos in the rear. Plane gets shut down by the Coops, trying to dive the Me Too there, trying to take the eyes away. If that Me Too falls, then dealing with the T-55s and keeping the T-72s busy there in the rear will be a good bit easier. But Matcherino now already arriving here on the front line. The BMP-1 not great at shooting down the Super Puma, so the commandos likely gonna get out of the helicopter, but they might get stressed out quite a bit if the Super Puma immediately falls. It doesn't. Gazelle Hot here, a good investment as well. That one is doing great against T-72s and T-55As, and will mean that Fortitude fans needs to get some planes out against that really cheap helicopter, or get some better AA up to the front line as well. So India shouldn't be that easy to take for Fortitude fans just yet, but he could also at any moment swing south and try to cut into X-Ray, try to cut into Papa. This situation here currently is quite precarious for Stahlbrecher. It's not an easy one to maneuver through for Fortitude fans either, though. And SPW gets cut down. One Brandis goes down on the other side. Milan 2 trying to get into a good position. Pushes a bit too far forward. Likely gonna get stunned down before it can get anything on target here. Gets shut down immediately. And the Coops pushing forward towards the Gazelle. And no Apilas infantry here yet. I feel like that's a big miss here by Stahlbrecher.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have the numbers maybe so you don't buy the expensive infantry immediately, but it is true that the Apilas with the fast firing and also the amazing penetration could destroy a T-72 pretty quickly on really good range. The commandos of Stahl managed to fight off one of the first Motorschützen squad, but the second one is currently holding the silo tower and thus providing excellent recon coverage, even despite not being a recon unit, and giving some space for the mech attack of Fence to actually do something. But yeah, with numerous Surblindes, numerous infantry squads, and Milan 2 out there, that attack is gonna need maybe a little bit of reinforcements, or at least in the future is gonna need some reinforcements. And those reinforcements aren't necessarily gonna reach there, considering the pressure Stahl is applying here at the base. Though infantry Motorschützen are securing at least some of the basic roads here.
Yeah. Hot here, finding a new angle, getting a hit and a kill against T-55 commandos, getting some good AT rocket hits there as well. Gazelle finding another shot, but not quite a hit there against another T-55, flying away before the coops can easily get on target, but they still manage to find them in line of sight. Okay, kill goes out. Still paid off. The Gazelle Hots here, pretty effective units to get around. Papa might fall, that will stop the tick, but Stahl at least is ahead of points. Could still set up some pressure towards Lima. So far, not a single play out of 40 defense. Stahl still respecting it though, getting a good couple of roll-ons here out. And tries to get some ATGMs onto the enemy rear. You don't want to fight tank fights in the north. Your tanks get one-shotted. We have seen a couple of AMX-10s just getting popped by the T-72s, but you can't really do that to the enemy. You need to get a couple of shots on target, and you have the range advantage, so you kind of want to use that, but that is where you have to go into the center or the rear of the enemy for get those shots. So Stahl in a bit of an odd spot when it comes to positioning right now, but at least 380 points ahead in points.
Yeah, I mean, for the moment, the T-72s and the T-55s have managed to win basically all the tank fights, and with the P4 Milans are excellent, especially amazingly cost efficient against all the tanks on board here. But the problem is going to be with numbers. The P4 Milans cannot actually, they can do damage, but they cannot hold front lines. And if they get spotted, they're as good as dead. And there are enough cheap and decent priced tanks for Fence that they can allow. At this point of the game, it's okay to lose a few of them as long as you're gaining some ground. The conquest of India is not looking good. It's not looking really that realistic. With proper engagements, Fence can actually do this, and there is a recon infantry unit now to provide great coverage. But I would still argue that overinvestment of attention or resources into the attack on India is just going to give Stahl time to figure something else out in the middle. The middle is going to have so many angles, and it's going to demand a lot of attention from both players. And the middle is also going to be a wider front line. Stahl doesn't necessarily have to micro everything that's happening around India because India is so easily defensible.
Yeah. Matcherino there slowly pushing in a bit. Matcherino also pushing towards the center point though. And Stahl needs to start to find a couple of kills here. Finds a kill against the T-72 in the north with an AMX-10 RC disciplined side shot from good range. So that is a nice one. Matcherino trying to push forward a bit there. Units, the infantry of Stahlbrecher repositioning, and he now has a group anti-char. The double Apilas murder machines that can even make a T-72 disappear within a couple of seconds. So that is a fantastic unit to hold India with. Issue is, Mod of Clever have spotted it already. So Fortitude fans knows it's there. Matcherino will find the VAB million as well. And Stahl doesn't only need to hold out towards India, he also needs to keep the supply up towards X-Ray. Hold that point as well. Maybe can start a bit of pressure on the south. There's still only the Spezial of Claris in front of Lima. That would be a way to get a point pick back up. And T4 Milan here now engaging in the center, trying to get some kills against the T55. Does miss though. Me 24 P-AT helicopter coming around, the Rolands rotating. Both sides not with the strongest forces in the middle, but currently better trades for fans there, whilst he preserves his forces in the north and keeps the pressure up alive there.
Yeah, so Fence is building up a nice front line. The risks of facing the Apilas or the group Andishar are such a big deal that there needs to be overwhelming fire supremacy at every point. Basically, every time a French infantry unit gets spotted, it needs to be immediately get suppressed. Otherwise, its AT weapons are a huge problem. And meanwhile, the reinforcements of Stahl are actually building up on the southern side. Stahl doesn't know this yet, but it already has more than enough to push through the back point of Lima. There only being a single Spezialaufklärer there, and the slow building up India attack, it could still work out, but it is going into an extremely defined concave. There could be maybe a little bit more ammunition for the Milan 2s, maybe a tank or two or something. An extra Mephisto there could work out, but still, Stahl losing the Hot 2 missile into the Kub. Oh, that was actually a kind of a load-bearing part of the concave. That's a big issue for Stahl, losing that helicopter.
Yes, losing an Apilas infantry on the ground as well, and for the advance now bringing Me-24Ps towards the north, and he doesn't know it, but there is no AA there at all right now, so he could just A-click over the whole of India right now and then follow it up with his vehicles. So Stahlbrecher in a lot of trouble. Brings some Mistral teams now. They might arrive in time as Fortitude fans currently not pushing the issue, but the trades currently, just like in game number 1, currently going towards Fortitude fans. This time around, it's not with big airplay though, but just really solid setup on the ground. And Stahlbrecher not really finding a footing in the northern fight so far, and his center push has not quite gained the result he was hoping for either.
Yeah, the Milan 2 in the tower is doing good damage, front armor damage to the T-55, but Stahl doesn't really have a mobile force around to support the Milan 2, letting it now firing a second shot, which does miss, and losing that Milan 2 there. Could have been microed away and avoided the whole thing, gotten some free damage. But unfortunately, just Fence's core group still hasn't been questioned, still hasn't been compromised in any way.
Yeah. And MX30 P2 Prentice falling back. P4 goes down in the middle as well. T72's pushing to the center now as well. And get the Prentice. And now there is only one AT unit left there. The Rolands have to run as well. And the threat towards India now being used for the pivot to the south, cutting the reinforcement there as well with great Conqueror's positioning, and the Me-24 abusing all the empty spaces where there is no AA, finding a Brennis now, getting some good hits there. Smoke comes out, but the Brennis now not in a position to come into the middle and help out with the defense there, and we have a push of Stahl towards the direct south, and it is going to capture Lima here, or at least get into Lima. But Fortitude fans by now has enough reserves that they can call in for that southern section as well, that this capture is not going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean, Stahl is attacking with basically overwhelming force, but it took a little bit too long, so Fence has been able to build up a counter-attacking force here, and if Fence overextends here and walks into the chasseurs, the tanks could easily be pushed away or stunned, buying a little bit more time for Stahl to figure something out. But yeah, Fence seems to have a lot of resources stacked up, and is counter-attacking with a similar really big force, honestly. Surprisingly big force. Surprisingly a lot of floating when it comes to points here.
Yeah, Roland 2 gets shut down. We have a push towards the south. T-55 is doing their best to push through there, and the ATGM positions here just not there for Stahl. The T-72s and T-55s here doing a good job. Mirage being called in just for strafing. and trying to shoot down maybe a recon helicopter, not really achieving anything. And the lighter, harder hitting class cannon divisions didn't really get its hits out, and whenever it was just front into front fight, the T-72s did what they do best and gained some great results there for Fortitude fans. And Stahl now kind of in the point where he needs to push back the north, whilst Fortitude fans is busy in the middle. But for that, he needs to generate some kills, and he didn't get the T-72s there once more. He is losing the center, and at the same time, he starts to lose the south as well. Stahlbrecher in a lot of trouble. The tick finally started for 40 defense as well, and this is way too early for Stahlbrecher to lose the control over this map if he wants to win it by points. That +2 here, more than enough to get the victory for Fortitude fans, and Stahl here really not able to hold out at all.
Yeah, I mean, Fence recognizing that India was such a tough nut to crack and going down and attacking an easier target, say Indochina maybe. Not the first one to do that, not the first one to immediately gain a lot of great positions from which to hold, forcing the enemy into a counterattack. But the counterattacks here are just the number of T-72s and them just going head to head against AMX-30B2s. It's just not going well for Stahl. Stahl's positions had so much potential, but every single engagement has basically been done on Fence's terms. Even the massive counterattack down, the massive attack down south, the Fence just immediately took the units and was floating enough points to fight it off, and hasn't basically lost anything in doing so, except running out of fuel for some tanks and coups. Meanwhile, the any kind of a counterattack that's happening up north by the forces that Stahl had bought to defend India, those are now attacking a mechanized force that can pick the fights easily. The BMP-1s and the T-72s, they have a lot of space to retreat, and they have no problem sacrificing a few infantry units to keep trading upward.
Yeah.
Just really a masterclass from Fence here.
Bounty chart trying to find some kills, but not really getting into positions. At the infantry of Stahlbrecher here always just arriving a bit too late and just being a bit out of position. We only saw a single Apilas land on target that got a kill in the center there, but outside of that, Fortitude fans able to avoid all of those fights, but getting some shots back with good recon positioning and good tank positioning in general against the MX-10s whenever they got a shot at him. And because his frontal armor was good enough to not get killed immediately in most of these situations, he was able to shoot back at the pretty lightly armored tanks on the other side and armored vehicles like the MX-10s and get the kills on those. And by now, Stahlbrecher here about to fall behind on points and is so far behind on the position on the map. The combined arms here nearly non-existent in the south, barely existing in the north, and on the other side we have a big helicopter tab. We have massive tank plops still ready to go, and enough resupply on the way to get them back fueled up and ready to move towards the enemy here as well. There we go. Points are ahead for Fortitude fans as well, and this is a really, really tough position for the player in blue. And this time around, I don't even think good ground micro, like in game number 1, could solve the situation.
Yeah, I would argue that that Fortitude fans basically kind of had the same core idea as with game number 1. That is gonna play a little bit weird, but the goal is going to be getting good engagements. And when you get good engagements, you force the enemy on a back foot, and a division that is kind of reliant on tempo and trying to win early ground, such as 5E, that division is going to spend a lot of its points in defensive and cheap units, such as Milantus and in infantry, grenadier voltigeurs, to hold the back point of India, and then subsequently was lacking on the mech department. And with these wide front lines and with good and consistent recon play from Fence's part, Fence also completely avoiding the tunnel vision issue, which we see so often, where people just keep up attacking a position because they feel committed to that position and can't avoid it. But Fence immediately got a few kills on the southern flank relative to the northern attack, and then just drove down. The tanks just drove and fought themselves into X-ray, and that is what humility gets you. Humility is one of the greatest superpowers in life because it can allow you to gain that kind of an insight. And as you know, after this, Stahl has now been locked into basically an infantry fight in the northern flank, which is complete horror, and a mechanized breakthrough in the middle. Meanwhile, Fence has a very wide potential concave with both close range and long range defenses. This is at every point here, Stahl is being forced into bad engagements, and I just don't think it's an accident. I think this is Fence just really getting a good tactic and getting just series and series and series of great engagements. And now with the overwhelming counterattack to Stahlbrecher's overwhelming southern attack, Fence is probably going to be able to push into Oscar as well.
Yes, and we see Milan 2 engaging in the south, does miss the Shilka, does get shut down, and Oscar about to get pushed in here as well. We have a couple of planes now coming in for Fortitude Defense as well. None of them really engaging because they don't really have anything they need to engage against. Commandos now trying to push back in the north, but Fortitude Defense by now has combined arms and tank gun that can shoot everywhere. Flamethrower infantry in the north, and there's just way too few numbers here on this for the 5th Plane Day. And the 5th Plane Day usually a division with the autocannons and light vehicles and get fast
We got
around
a
and shoot.
surprising Robotos. Robotos was joined in for a few seconds there. Interesting. It probably is not an issue with the microphone, considering you replaced it.
Okay, SU-22 here, coming around, trying to get a cluster run on target. And MX-30B2 here, getting hit. Roland 2 shooting back. BAB and Mistral coming around as well. MX-30B2 moving towards the south. And yeah, the MX-30B2 here in the center doing a pretty good job as well. Commandos holding the line, but SPW-70s holding in the north there against the Commandos together with the Matcherino. So the Commandos trying to grind here through the forest, but there is no snowball potential here for 5th Plane Day anymore, and it is a division that runs around that fast mechanized snowball, and there is no breathing room for it anymore. There is no numbers for it anymore either, and the Commandos now running into a good consolidated combined arms, one of them immediately getting down, cut down by flamethrowers and T-55s. One T-55 gets shut down, but the Mi-24 immediately comes around, pushing back the MX-30, meaning that the Commandos here now under fire. Jaguar trying to come in, gets shut down by the Great AA, and this combined arms here by Fortitude Fence just a good bit too strong in the setup.
Yeah, even the helicopters for Fence being used as groups and constantly just like flying behind the line and only moving in when it seems like there is some kind of a mistake being made by Stahlbrecher, some kind of an overextension. Right now, getting targeted by the anti-air guns and a Mistral. So a mistake on Fence's part, but though on the other hand, you know, the defenses down at Oscar are so limited that might as well go all in on that angle.
Yeah, and the gradient voltages here will just about go down. Mi-24 here gonna kill. It's still a +4, so yeah, even if Fortitude Fence does just sit down, he still will win in 4 minutes. So Stahlbrecher here is the one that needs to make a push. He is trying to set something up there in the north, but he just didn't get a great trade at any point in this map. Like, there was not a single engagement where it was like, oh yeah, Stahl won this like mid-sized engagement. He got a couple of decent kills from time to time, but in this game, it really was Fortitude fans maneuvering through this from small victory to small victory time and again. He never got any massive victories either because Stahl did keep his forces out of big, massive fights for the whole time, but he kept on pleading and pleading and pleading, and by now he is nearly dry. And VAB there going down as well. And he's also under so much pressure that he just basically needs to A-click into a zone right now. Once he does that, he will lose all his units, and then the game likely will be over.
Yeah, and the zone, Stahl is going to try to A-click into a zone, and that zone is Papa. The 5 infantry squad and a command tank reinforcements are moving into the close range to follow the one commando left out of that latest assault. And with a one artillery piece, oh no, it's it's aiming at an empty location here, unfortunately. So even that cannot give Stahl just a little bit of momentum. Wouldn't give.
Dragon Power there sitting up on the hill. We have an MX of one. Yeah, just firing a bit into the empty space there, as you pointed out. It did a lot of work in the first game, the artillery, but it came in way too late here to really have a difference. The game was too much in a fluid state. Red came to the front line for artillery to really have a time to shine and actively be used. And a couple more units here going down. Fortitude fans once more not really losing much. MX30 here trying to push in the south. As we have 1 minute, 2 minutes now remaining in this. Conquerors firing against MX30s in the south. Mirage trying to get some strafes in here in the north, but it will just get immediately shut down by Coops and Shilkas. And there we go, AMX30 trying to push forward, trying to get into that northern zone, but we have so many vehicles behind it. We have way more infantry for Fortitude 10 fans, and there we have it. GG is called, and we will go to game number 3, to a decider game in this one. Fortitude fans this time getting it through, and after once more finding the better early game, he this time around kept the advantage and the push on the ground, gained into a point lead in a pretty decent time, and from there on just kind of strangleholded Stahlbrecher until Stahlbrecher had to tap out here. Really well executed 7th play, good counter pick here, and both games we saw the counter pick win. That can't happen in the final game, because in the best of 3 here, in the final game, both pick at the same time. The matchup that will get on Kreider is a really interesting one. Fans picking 39th Guards Motostrelki, and we get the Spanish. And that is pre-patch, pre-buff Spanish, but the brunette division here showing up for Stahlbrecher, and he likes the 5th Blinde, and that's the second AMX30 division here, the Spanish. Going to be interesting to see if they can be more successful for him than what we saw out of the 5th.
Yeah, I'm very excited in seeing the Spanish go against the 5th, because if the Spanish have a single advantage against the 5e, I would be interested in seeing this advantage. Haven't spotted it yet myself.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay,
go.
yeah, well, the planes. It's always the planes. Planes are their own thing, okay? Also, I'm bad at the planes, so I don't care.
So yeah, quick break, guys, and then we're gonna be back with 39 versus the brunette division of the Spanish. So here we go. Game number 2, Stahlbrecher and game number 3. Both on 1 point. Decider game in this best of 3. Blind picks. Stahlbrecher coming around with the Spanish brunette. This is Fortitude fans coming around with 39th. And once more, doesn't seem like an air opener. Does seem like a pretty heavy ground force. And it's something that we have seen from Fortitude fans a couple of times before. A push over the plateau towards Delta is on the line here, most likely. He doesn't like the Bravo fights, which usually are a bit of a grind. And he rather goes into the north, giving up the south to Stahlbrecher, most likely. Stahl not over-investing there, not a massive investment towards Bravo, and has a decent amount of forces in the north as well. They'll have to be careful, though, to not let them get overrun and killed off one by one. And MX30 EM1 Recon tank, a really interesting port deploy tank. Doesn't have the greatest range, but has really good penetration with the 19 pen at 1925 meter.
Yeah, and we're seeing a pretty standard two tank 2T80 opener, which seem to be going up to golf. So far, Fortitude Fence is keeping up with the slightly queer tactics here, not playing standard, but playing with standard unit combinations. Now, 39th is nowadays is famous for its potential for air rushes and even heli rushes. There are good recon helicopters and there are great attack planes as well as great fighters. But with this amount of units on board already, I doubt Fence is going to open with those. The problem is, and the power is, that those units are going to be something that Stahl constantly has to think about. And Stahl has to prepare for them. And we're seeing already a large amount of the AA guns, both the Orlikons, the GDF 005s, as well as the CAA 2120s, which are the older and have way less range. The threat of the air attack basically uh, eats up the opening potential of divisions like Brunette, where you want to be spending all of your points in gaining an early numerical advantage, especially in infantry fights, but also so that you can use some of the best ATGM vehicles in the game. The BMR CC TOW is an 85 point, it has smoke, it's really fast, it's got 8 health and 12 rounds of TOW 2 missiles. And these things, basically taking strategic positions, is going to be the main way that the Spanish can counter the T-80BVs. And especially if Fence can just break through like one of those and then start exploiting a front line, maybe even get into Delta, this it's gonna be a horrible situation for Stahl to counterattack. Stahl could maybe counterattack quite well when it comes to infantry. The Fusileros C90 and the Jinetes have been buffed because with their C90 AT launcher getting a very significant buff, but we are still playing with the older version of the game, and the Fusileros and the large infantry squads are best in just close quarters combat, and this is it's not necessarily going to be the most realistic path to victory for Stahl, considering it's the Charlie Delta area in which long sight lines and tanks and ATGMs fight most of the fights.
Yeah, MX30 Recon here coming into the south as well. Unit tests here now get into the forest. This, as I said before, played on the previous patch, so still 500 meter range on these. On the other side, still the 265 point TDBV. So this is a game before the buff to both of these divisions on both sides. But the Spanish for sure got buffed more in the latest patches. They got a couple of nice buffs to one of the AMX30s getting more availability. Those BMR CC toes that you were talking about getting a buff and availability now as well. And especially the C90 CR going up to 675 meter range. In this fight here, they're mostly bound to the forests where their 18 pen is great, but they can't really reach out that much further outside of the forests. So any BMP2 that can get a bit further away will still be able to light them up and stun them down before they can get into range, most likely. And yeah, interesting push here from 42 fans into the north. At the same side, Bravo about to get captured by a BMR PC. Charlie completely uncontested by 42 fans as well. So it's really all about Foxtrot, Golf, and then Delta. And Stahlbrecher, not the biggest force up there, but I feel like that should still be a decent force to play some defensive retreats with and at least hold on to Delta.
Yeah, at least it's really easy for Stahl to siege the position of Golf as long as as Delta holds. The ATGMs and the tanks and the AA guns on Delta need to be fought off, and that's going to be a more difficult fight than actually securing Golf. And if the mech force ever moves away from Golf, if the tanks ever move away from Golf, as we've seen Fortitude Fence being very mobile with their mech forces, the possibility for Stahl to just go back there again is pretty big, considering how many large infantry squads the Spanish get. The points invested by Stahl into the rest of the map, where everything is uncontested, aren't a huge deal right now. But if Fence starts getting like some great fights early on, Stahl probably will be under not necessarily a real pressure, but a cosmic pressure to start moving around those units on the passive regions. And also, I want to point out Fence actually wrote into the YouTube chat that in the first game that this happened, Fence opened up with an air attack with a recon helicopter, but unfortunately the game crashed after 24 minutes. So this is the replay, and maybe this influenced Fence's, like I said, a little bit wacky attempt of doing a mech attack into the least attack position on this map. Golf.
Yeah, not pushing into Delta is a bit weird for sure, especially as the Moderate Red already have a good footing there. KDPVs, I feel like, should have at least tried. They can take a shot or two, so even if you get shot at, you can still retreat. But currently, the KDPVs are big, lumbering, heavy forces moving around, 3 of them around, but they haven't fired a single shot yet. And that is never great when your heaviest forces are not really paying any dividends yet. So this is going to be interesting. But the Southern forces, Stahl, now trying to figure out how much there actually is for Fortitude Fence. If there is maybe even a way into Echo and into cutting the reinforcements into the north. Well, the TADPVs start to get into a bit of a better spot. Me24K here, rotating around a bit in the northern part of the map as well. But we have an MTLB supply truck coming in for the northern part of the map. Their Modradredka here flooding in on the other side. Erlikin still not being moved from the spawn. Stahlbrecher with the classic Medi slippiness here in game number 3. MX30 REs coming into the middle here as a bit of an AA setup with the Roland 2 missiles on them. And now we see the first couple of engagements here. Modradredka figuring out the position of some MX30s, one of them getting hit hard by a TADBV, but not quite killed. And the TADs still trying to figure out some line of sights here. Haven't found all that many shots. I believe they're gonna start engaging some infantry here now, but that's not really where you want to have them fire at right now either. So there we go. BM are going down. MX30 EM recon in a dangerous spot, but okay, there we go. Line of sight now found. TADBV gets a good hit. MX30 has to get out of there. Smoke plague as well. The TADBV's on the roll. And that is a big, big threat for Stahlbrecher. MX30 goes down. The TADBVs with decent recon support here, getting a good kill. And they don't have to get the push through here just yet. They just have to start getting enough trades that the next attack can do it, as there is enough supply around here to repair them. And Stahlbrecher either needs to get some kills here or really avoid getting any damage on his units. Otherwise, he will be in big trouble, and he loses another MX30. That kind of means he has to get a kill here now.
Yeah, the smoke, especially the smoke mortars, doing great work here, blocking the TOW2s every once in a while and allowing for supremacy engagements. Though one of the command tank taking a TOW2 up its face. Meanwhile, there is an infantry fight happened southwest with the Fusileros fighting through a Motostrelki, and even a VEC-25 recon vehicle has managed to get very close to the red spawn. And though Stahl is really lacking on the number of ATGMs that we would expect here, the Hot 1 equipped BO-105 helicopters are excellent in like patching up the situation for the moment. But even the OSA is so fast and has such a great anti-helicopter range that the OSA could be microed against them. So the helicopters themselves are not a long-standing solution, though they do work quite nicely because they can every once in a while they can spot stuff that is above the because they can see above the smoke stacks, of course.
Yeah,
And
they also have
we're
a
also
really
seeing
good
that despite
good real line action here from Stahlbrecher. A VEC-25 being really close to the spawns here and having a line of sight of one of them, whilst the Fusileros and pushing back the Motostrelkes here in the middle as well. There is still a BMP2 behind it, so the BMR doesn't have a direct line towards Echo, but this means that it puts a bit of pressure onto Fortitude's fans on the front line, or if he reacts to it, he will lose a bit of pressure on the front line. Either way, good moves there from Stahlbrecher, and is still holding on to his line. He just has to be careful to not lose more AMX-30s here. Stablier is being pushed back. He has an AA piece here in the north that is still pre-nerf ground-based AA, so that can shred through a lot of infantry, but it's getting pushed down a bit there. More Fusileros coming in. Situation here, not dire, not great for Stahlbrecher.
Yeah, the Stahl's infantry is the infantry squads are significantly larger, and Soviet infantry doesn't have any more than a single machine gun per squad. So in one-to-one fights, the Fusileros tend to win, even despite not having any machine guns on their own. The M65 variants do have a single machine gun of their own, but the problem is that the Spanish really the infantry of the Spanish is largely just like guys. They don't have the Saperi RPO specialized engineer weaponry that can immediately force an enemy infantry unit to retreat. They don't really have any artillery out here in support. What they do have are the guy boy bitubos, the by gay boys, if you will, which are only 35 point twin tubed AA guns, and we've seen those things be really good at keeping infantry units away and suppressing them quickly. Now, those are also getting patched away, at least their infantry damages in the next patch. So for the moment, let's
Oh,
see.
Stahlbrecher getting a victory here in the rear. The VEC-25 actually killing off a Rapira that was being deployed defensively and then started moving again and being killed off in the MTLB transport. Double Me-24K investment here now, trying to hunt it down. Recon and normal helicopter there as the AMX-30 at the same time getting some real pressure towards the rear here. BTR-60 under fire. The BMP-2 has already been killed off, so the pressure onto the Echo Point is real, really forcing Fortitude fans to get some defenses online there. We have an F-18 out here now as well, the ATGM variant of the Spanish with 4 Mavericks and 40% ECM. Really great AT plane as well. Pretty dangerous for the T-80 BVs. They don't get one-shotted by it frontally, but they still take a good amount of damage. Good artillery fire here this time from Fortitude fans with a D20 on the front line. That's something that we haven't seen much from Fortitude fans in the series so far, but he is pretty good when he gets his artillery early out like that as well. On the other side, though, Stahlbrecher getting into the rear point, getting the capture here most likely with a good smoke usage on the BMR PC, and then likely gonna get the hell out of there. But the CV won't survive. +3, still big on this map, and the current take here, really nice relief for Stahlbrecher, who is still under big siege around the Delta point.
Yeah, I mean, this point lead for Stahl is gigantic. Like as you said, that those tank fights going into Delta, those large attacks, they needed to achieve something on either end, and really, I think it was the arrival of the ATGM helicopters that completely froze up the front line. And all those points getting set up by fence with that minimal backline action, and also like Stahl's minimal backline action, or not necessarily minimal, but still pretty weak backline action going up there, has managed to secure a 500-point lead already with a bunch of kills for the VEC 25 as well as forcing Fence to basically just start paying attention to this other things than the decisive battle. I doubt Stahl is going to be able to straight up go and attack the main force in the northern part. But with these Bitubo reinforcements and with all of these BMRs and ATGMs all around the place, it's at the very least is an extremely hard target for Fence to start pushing now.
Yeah, and we get some shots here against some of the helicopters now. Fortitude fans setting up a bit more pressure, but might have to find a way to rotate away from there as well, because he is currently pretty bunched up. And one of the big strengths of the Spanish is the great artillery tap that they get. 2 M110s, potentially some good rocket artillery in there as well. But the 2 M110s alone already can do a nasty job against you. And the +1 here now keeps on ticking. 600-point lead here, and more being generated. On a lot of maps, that 600-point lead wouldn't be that massive. On this map, it is pretty impressive already. KDBK there getting hit, but enough AA around. 3 coops and an OSA. So the F-18 gets shut down. A bit of a suicide run there from Stahl, and I don't think that was a wise choice flying into the blind there. The TADBVK was far away to be any threat to him, and you usually want to come in and hit the enemy whilst you can hunt them down. That's not really the case here, and the southern part, like, is more under threat here right now of getting attacked with a mobile force. So having the plane there to help out with defense in the south or against direct pushes into you in the north would have been pretty helpful. Now it's down, and that gives Fortitude Fence a bit of an easier time pushing in. Artillery targeting the mortar of Fortitude Fence, likely gonna get the kill there. There we go. But the smoke setup is up for the most part, so it's going to be interesting to see if Fence is finally able to get into the delta point here.
Yeah, the Commendatura upvetted and used as kind of cheap assault troops is interesting, but I guess that's what you do when you're playing 39th and you don't have too many dedicated units for that purpose. The Commendatura are more than good enough to spot the enemy for the larger firing line, and they also get deployed cheaply and pretty quickly. As we can see, even more infantry reinforcements are moving in here, and they're trying to go in and get into that zone finally. There isn't a massive amount of infantry for Stahl to defend this, but with all of these vehicles around the place, they are both capable of moving away from the smoke if the smoke is in a critical position, and also just when the vehicles move away from the immediate line of sight of the T-80s, the T-80s are just going to have to start moving forwards. And every time they move forwards, they risk a bomber. Here we see a Phantom, a C-12, going in there and immediately getting tagged despite huge miss micro for Stahl, honestly. But yeah, this it's not looking best for Fortitude Fence at this very moment. But if there is a series of good kills, Stahl is going to be forced into counterattacking this with infantry, and that's just not going to be realistic. Slowly removing the AA guns, which have been up in the front line, means that the helicopters can now freely move around the place, though AMX-30s moving in and getting some immediate hits against those helicopters.
Yeah, Me-24K here getting hit pretty hard. The other helicopter is able to land, so not being targetable by the MX-30s right now. We see a good hit here against one T-80 with a side shot, so it goes down. At the same time, though, a bit of a motostrike flank through the north. Fusileros have to be brought in. The artillery currently down to only one shot. The Ehrlichen being left here in the rear, that is pretty annoying. Whilst the S-24 does get a decent hit, but the MX-30s, 4 of them on the battlefield, get the kill in return. So both sides here taking some heavy casualties, but so far the infantry plop of Fortitude Fence getting into the zone here is pretty big, and a lot of the units here of Stahlbrecher pretty low, have to retreat. The 2 T-80s that are still on the front line are in decent condition. 2 others getting repaired right now, so the mechanized force of Fortitude Fence unstoppable right now. This is a big issue for Stahlbrecher, who lost the echo point again. Tries to get around with an HE bomber here once more. This is a one-way trip most likely. And his bombing run does not achieve the result he wanted. Loses to the plane again. Same time, Rapira here helping out, being a pretty cost-efficient AT weapon next to the expensive but tanky T80s, and the MX30s here currently not trading well. Helicopter once more rotating around, and Stahlbrecher's one key thing here right now is the big point lead, and he really will have to play around that for the remainder of the game most likely. Finds an OSA here, MX30 trying to find some more damage, but is now running into a Motostrelki, eats an RPG 7VL, and the second one would kill it. There we go. Goes down. Stahl really needs to find a couple more important kills here. Hasn't done that. The Osa kill was nice, but not really a game changer as there's still enough other AA around. And his M110 hasn't been firing here for a while. Only fired the one remaining shot, but is out of ammo right now, and he doesn't have anything to repair his AMX-30s either. Coops and BMP-2s maybe over pushing it a bit, as the T-80s all being pushed back right now, as the helicopters did their job. MiG-23, risky life there as well. BMR-PC under fire too, but Conkers and BMP-2s have the AMX-30 under fire. Stahl living on the edge right now on the north. Has a side shot potential with a TOW-2 here against the T-80BV. Oh, it rotates around. It gets a shot towards the TOW-2 unit. Does miss it, but fires another one, leaving the TOW-2 unit really low on cohesion, and it is pretty low in general here as well. AMX-30s finally have some resupply trucks again, but they are not in a hot spot. But the CV tank at least hasn't moved in yet. 840 points and still taking for Stahl. 20 minutes to go. That lead is okay, but he needs to keep on fighting for Delta and Charlie. And that is just not going to be easy with the amount of T-80s that we have by now on the battlefield.
Yeah, I just now Fortitude Fence is moving and trying to do once again the switch up into the middle point, as we saw in the last game. And but this time the T-80s are not in massive numbers, and there are already a lot of defenses. The Guy Boys are opening fire on long range against the helicopters, doing amazing damage, dropping down the recon heli with two AMX-30 REs, Rolands, basically moving into a pretty risky area here. And Stahl has already showed that there is a TOW-2, and with that TOW now moving away into a new cover, joining in with a second TOW, with some autocannon helicopters actually acting here as some kind of a reserve. I'm thinking that this is going well for Stahl. I mean, that attack, the fact that Stahl kept this going, that Stahl had just enough supply to already have all of these tanks resupplied, and despite enemy infantry being out there in the front line with the TOA log grenade launcher armed transports, as well as the good numbers of cheap and large infantry squads, the Fusileros, I think it is still Stahl still has the control over this zone, and not just technically. Oh, Coop taking out the Rock 80 helicopter there. Unfortunate for Stahl, but Stahl is just, there's so much stuff coming out there. Pence is sending out waves of Biryusas, the anti-air AA guns, and even like there are OSAs. Yeah, this is I think there might be a lack of tank in Fence's deck at this point if they're buying so many Biryusas already.
Yeah, we also might have the infantry eventually start to run try on both sides, so that's going to be interesting. They have brought out quite a lot of it to the north. Motostrelki being caught out off guard there, but the T-80 is currently not able to help out much there in the north. No center push coming in, and we are now at the 18-minute mark, and 950 points pick up here for Stahl. That means that Fortitude Fence eventually will need to get 2 of these points here on the battlefield if he wants to get the take back into his favor, and that is not going to be easy, as Stahl just keeps on rolling in with new stuff here, and the survival of 4 of the MX30s here really, really important. A lot of them pretty low, but he kept the air clean enough, and he did stop the T80 BVs from fully rolling him over. And he still hasn't killed many of the T80s. The T80s here still keep up the pressure, and once more in a good engagement here. Now AMX30 Recon going down. That is really annoying. AMX30 EM2 pushing towards the Commandantura, but the Motostrelke BMP is still around. ADBVK, 2 of them rolling in now with BMP2s, with more tank supports. Rapiras pushing behind all of this as well. And that all is a bit of an issue here. Maybe some good bombing runs can change it. Maybe some good artillery hits, but the M10 hasn't been used in a while. No second M10 on the battlefield here either. So Stahlbrecher, ooh, gets the first
Oh,
kill. Good flanking shots there against the first Recon T80B. The next T80BV gets a heavy hit from a Sablier EM2 from the rear as well. Ooh, and we have a GG here as we have a surrender out of Fortitude Fence. Was once more ahead in points, but did GG out of this here. Bit surprising in the GG timing here, but the losses of the TADBV, the stop of the push there, for sure quite annoying. He was ahead in points, so this time around it was also not just points in planes, it was points on the ground. But obviously 300 points, not that major, and to get back 1000 points on this map, not that easy. So in the end, Stahl getting the W here, and with that, we'll move on to the semifinal.
yeah, I think this is explainable if you put yourself into Fortitude Fence's boots in this moment or shoes, and imagine trying to disengage from that main delta fight and moving downhill into the middle, and then facing that, even though it was a light defense, it worked very well. The Guy Boy and the Totu immediately putting out the limits, showing that this engagement that would have to happen would happen against an already existing long range defense. And then when you know you haven't necessarily killed the number of AMX30s that you want, the AMX30s are going to be able to put themselves into wider angles. There's a bunch of forests. Those tanks are fast, and you're already with the upvetted infantry already running out of some of those frontline units that you need to secure that forest, because otherwise the AMX30s can just keep on peeking there and doing close range damage to your tanks. And even if, maybe there could have been 2 more minutes and the T80s would have gotten a critical, or maybe Fence would have gotten a little bit more information about what was going on there. But I understand the impulse of cutting out when you feel like you have already failed in that attack numerous times. You're behind on points, so you're going to have to get like a significant victory, and your attempt of disengaging was stopped on its tracks early on.
Yeah, that means
So I get
Stahlbrecher for the second time in the semifinals of the WARNO League, just like last season. This time around against another Russian, against Scoof, aka Bubblegum here in the semifinal. That will be a best of 5. And that means we only have one more quarterfinal remaining. And so we had a good couple of good games here, and now we need to figure out who will face Startek in the second semifinal. Will it be Griffon or will it be Mix90? Both coming in on amazing streaks into this quarterfinal. Great games. Griffon being the top seed here in this one, dominating a group that had Hippie in it, that had uh, Axis in it, that had Jeremy in it, and MJ player. And that's all for really high caliber players. And he only lost one map to Hippie, dominated the other 3 games. So really, really strong showing. But on the other side, we have Mix90, who dominates the ladder currently and did show some really amazing games here as well. He had a couple of somewhat clowny games as well. We're gonna see which Mix90 shows up today. and we're gonna see what Griffon can do about it. Really excited for this one, guys. Quick break, and then we're gonna be back with the second series of the day and the final quarterfinal of Division 1. So here we return into the series number 4 of the quarterfinals of Division 1. Mix90 versus Griffon65. And we are on surrounded. So picks and bans here in this one. Pretty odd when it comes to the maps. We have surrounded, Izura, and Vertigo. So 2 of the new maps that usually didn't see that much play here coming around in this one. 3 old maps banned here out of Mix90. On the other side, Chandra and Omen, the 2 most played maps here, banned. Bans against the divisions, pretty standard. Quite wise choices here. The ban of Mnet against Mix90 makes absolute sense. He is an absolute monster of it. 24th, one of his favorite divisions, makes sense as well. 6 Leger, I'm not so sure. It didn't feel like Mix90 was super scary on that one, and don't think it's an amazing division. It got buffed now, but on this patch they played on, wasn't that great. On the other side, 3 absolute standard bans here, 24th, 4th, and 119th. Then we have 2 meta picks out of Mix90. 16th Panzer, absolutely dominating the league, and 1st Canadian, versus 9th Panzer and 5th Panzer, 2 really standard tanks, and then 79th as the 3rd nation with an armored division showing up for Griffon. So Griffon, 3 times armor, Mix90, 3 times, 2 times mechanized, and then 152nd for the 3rd game. So the wild Mix90 showing up for game number 3. And that is going to be exciting. The surrounded game here, we haven't seen that much of this map so far. I'm really interested to see how Griffon with the 9th will tackle this problem of the enemy forward deployment on this map.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but people generally started out thinking that this is an infantry map. It's a forward deployment map because you have so many great infantry positions in the middle. And then people realized that the lines of sight are a little bit more forgiving than other urban areas, making a lot of people figure that, well, this is an armored division map. This is a tank blob map. You just position your mech in places where they can move up and down the sides of the plateau, and thus they can just slowly whittle away any infantry is positioned in the middle and start and trade themselves up. And we're kind of seeing Griffon opening up with the 3 T-72 MUV2s, which are the cheapest ones that you get with 9th. Not as cheap as the ones with 7th, but still the correct spamming option, especially in the early game when you don't face as many threats, and absolutely completely overpowering against any of the Belgian tanks. So having them out in a number can give them the ability to fight off actual threats such as ATGMs, and meaning that the Belgians are going to have to basically abandon building up large tank forces if large T-72 forces appear. And all of these T-72s are going up there on the plateau, and they're going to follow a reasonably aggressive recon deployment. With 9th being so famously weak early game in the opener and becoming like a large artillery supported juggernaut in the late game, it's going to be intriguing to see if this is actually going to work out. The forward deployment of the Belgians, aka the Luxembourgians, of course, contains forward deploying TOW2 cars. There are recon helicopters, so knowledge of this mechanized opener is probably going to go pretty quickly for Mix90. And despite being outgunned with the tanks, there are so many roads here and so many positions that the Leopard 1s could easily just move behind some Milan 2s and try to wait for a better moment to strike, while giving away a little bit of early momentum in exchange of not losing their units, basically.
F-16A here, Me Too, US, kill, coming out. Has to be careful of the coops around. Gets it immediately. Gets shut down immediately. Big W for Griffon there in the first engagement. At the same time, though, Griffon's outflarer there in the north gets caught up. So Mix90 with good position on the ground. But killing a fighter here, nice W for Griffon. Mod of Terrors finding the Eclairs with the 50 cards in the middle. One big issue against the T-72s in the town fight for Mix is also that even if he gets his infantry on to them, his infantry has terrible anti-tank weapons, so the T-72s aren't even that easy to kill with his infantry, so he kind of needs his Leopard side-shotting them or getting some Milan 2s and TOW 2s onto them to get the kill, and that's not gonna be easy. At the same time, though, he is the bit lighter division that can get the flanks going on here, and so far, he is winning the sides. The Gulf side gets gifted to him. The northern side, he did get captured and killed one Aufklärer. Second one does at least get to come out in the north, but we have 4 Leo 1 reinforcements coming in here. And maybe with enough numbers, this is doable in the middle. MEV on the way to support the Mod Aufklärer. Leo 1A5BE coming around. Trying to find a shot here. Hasn't found it just yet. Ooh, VADS starting to deal with the Mod Aufklärer. Eclairs getting pushed back. Mod Schützen pushing forward. And Mix90 here gets penetrated in the Leo 1A5BE. Has to be really, really careful. They only have 8 frontal armor. So the T-72 MEVs do massive damage to them.
Yeah, so far this is going very badly for Mix90. The mech blob managed to get on the plateau behind the Moto Aufklärers. The Moto Aufklärers managed to beat off the Eclairers, which are smaller squads, and now supported by the Shilka and with the BRM doing spotting, the mech force for the moment seems unstoppable. But the BRM does get taken out by a flanking missile and just way more tanks, and even some of the few Belgian helicopters, the Augusta helicopters with TOW 2s coming in here, and they will be able to provide at least a deterrence, but probably don't want to be flying too closely with the Kub. The two Kubs actually.
T-72 goes down in the south, meaning 3 remaining here. We have the TOW 2s in the north. But yeah, first flanking shot achieved there, and Mix90 is microing his little heart out here out of the Leos currently, and is doing a pretty good job there. Gets another hit against an MVP in the middle. 72s here pushed back, and they have to be careful of the ATGMs. Infantry fights did go well for Griffon, but the tank fights currently not so much. And with the flanks being in the control of Mix90, it is on Griffon to win the center. The other might actually clear out of the north. That could be pretty helpful. Getting back into Alpha, stopping the tick would be quite nice, but for now, it's still a +1 even with the center captured. And we have more infantry here on the way. More 50 cults as well. The composition that Mix90 is investing into here in the middle is a bit weird, and once we have enough T-72s here and enough infantry around them to avoid flanking shots, this still might get pretty annoying for Mix90 on this hill, but at the moment he is still maneuvering pretty well through it all.
Yeah, I mean the reservists are quite decent infantry, 9-man, and have a pretty alright AT weapon with a Blindy side. So sending them up there to the front line to be shot at by the T-72s and the Motorschützen is the correct way to do this. But the real damage dealers kind of have to be the Milan 2s. The Motorschützen have good enough AT weapons to basically block the Leopards from actually doing any daring assaults, and the only like dedicated anti-infantry weaponry here is actually the Vulcan air defense system, the BADS, and that's not really maneuverable. The reservists are going to be just filling the front line here, and they're going to challenge the Motorschützen on defense, which kind of means that Mix90 does get a superior fire support advantage. The helicopter is moving up and down the front line, trying to catch any positions against the T-72s, and the T-72s so far are not really moving around, taking a front shot from a Milan 2 immediately. Oh wait, no, that there was actually supply. The supply wasn't just bought. Both sides do have supply left here, so any vehicles that are left in the front line with low armor is a needless risk for the moment and a micro mistake.
Yeah, we see the pressure here now really mounting up as the Leos now get a lot of room to shoot at all the Mordschützen. The MEV is currently not able to really hold out, and really fantastic micro from Mix90. The Leos can only tank one shot from the T-72s, but he was able to always get them out alive after they took one of those shots, whilst getting some shots onto the enemies to actually gain some kills here, even against the heavier tanks on the other side. And that leaves Griffon here with a bit of limited forces in the center, sending up a nice force towards the north, towards Alpha, trying to get that captured. But the center fight here, currently the 9th Panzer a bit under pressure. Oh, misses against the Leo 1BE there, and will be able to disengage the A109 here, coming along with good ATGMs. Ooh, Milan 2 does miss. Otherwise, that T-72 MOV would have been toast as well. Milan 2 in the north will find the BMP and the T-72 MOV there, as there is no recon for those guys, so they can't find the Milan 2 in the bush. And the Augusta rotating north as well. This is really, really scary for Griffon. MEV does stay alive there. MiG-23 ML finally coming around to deal with the Augusta. Does not get it in the first pass, but no AA up there in the north. But the +2 in the center goes down to a +1 thanks to the capture of the zone on the north. But recon so desperately needed there for Griffon. And the center situation here is still pretty annoying.
Yeah. Oh, the Augusta gets taken out. Despite it landing, I don't know if it was spotted, but also could have been a ground attack command for the MiG-23. Meanwhile, the middle attack, just the build-up of these Leopards and these M113s with the 50 cals has provided the Belgians here with so much HE damage that actually good infantry units are now being sent into the front line. The ESR GBP, the Recon Special Forces, as well as standard mech fusiliers with the these ones actually only have 14 pen, but still 14 pen is a good 80 damage for the Belgians, for Belgian infantry. Belgian infantry has more machine guns than most infantry, so that is their little bonus. And also they do come in the they largely come in the 50 cal transports, which especially in a map where you want to be stacking that HE damage, 50 cals become very valuable very quickly if the enemy cannot deal with them. And the Milan 2s here are kind of making sure that the enemy cannot deal with them, because the T-72s are constantly being corralled into bad positions. We can now see with the BRM-1 smoking away one of the Milan 2's command tank, having to do the same.
Yeah, MEV here not really getting any great kills due to M1 here now on the battlefield as well. There are decent positions in the north and the south for the T-72Ss, but for now it's more of the Ms. Question is just, can they get enough infantry around themselves to actually get into fights against units that they
Oh
spot?
no, there was a critical engine destroyed there. If that gets spotted, this could be a big artillery hit soon, but I'm not sure if Mix actually spotted this.
Yeah, units next to it getting stunned. MEVs here slowly pushing forward. Mordschützen in the south starting to get overwhelmed. No defensive tanks in the south, so the Leo 1s and the M113s there can just go on. Reservistas coming around in numbers, and the Sultan about to reach the front line there as well. The efficiency here going pretty well for the Belgians. And the
side shot taking out another T-72.
Yeah, the C-72s here really not having the best of day. None of them really have gotten their price worth by taking out enemy units, and that's a big, big issue here. It just feels like they're a bit too clunky for this town fight. So, for the most part, it's just Mix90 taking the engagements amazingly time and again, and just keeping his tanks alive and getting them immediately repaired after taking a shot or two.
Yeah, the balance of Mix90 between the ATGM vehicles and the tanks is really nice. Having having over invested into ATGMs earlier would have probably meant that the Motorschützen would have been able to keep a
Oh,
hold on the
next
ball.
M1 here, really low. Whelan 2 in the church, doing a good job. Okay, the T-72 does survive for now. Me-24D trying to retaliate, but it won't get a one-shot kill here, and only will deal good damage. So the layer 1 A5 BE needs to get the hell out of there. It does get the hell out of dodge, but the +3 here currently continues. Reservistas and Sniper ESR spotting the enemy. We start to see more helicopters. But on the other side, good artillery coming around, a lot of HGMs coming around, and the Leo 1A5 trains keep on coming, and the losses there are really pretty minimal so far.
Yeah, this is like I said, the balance. Like it could have been easy to see those 3 tanks early on and overinvest in the Milan 2s, which then Griffon could have exploited by putting a lot of Motorschützen out there. But instead, the balance of units for Mix90 has been great. At no point has Griffon, despite having stronger infantry on paper, the Motorschützen have 2 machine guns and have Resolute, and all of them are up at least vet 1. And significantly more powerful tanks, as well as great anti-air in with the coups, something that the Belgians just don't get. But what the Belgians do get, we're seeing out here. They get an ability to build up a nice, great infantry front line with the 9-man Reservista squad, with that comes in with the fire support of the 50 cal transport. They have the Leopards, which means that you're going to be having numbers of them. And even if you can't necessarily push with the Leopards, as is not in this part of the game, having them around provides inherent fire support. And if you exploit your early game advantage, your forward deployment advantage well enough, you can put the enemy under a really big tick, the +3 tick here, which has constantly led Griffon to try to do standard attacks. And Mix90 has microed around all of these attacks. Every time that there are Milan 2s that are in such ludicrous positions that you could never actually predict them. You could never pre-snipe them with artillery or bombers. And the Milan 2s also just keep moving around, both the weapons teams as well as the Iltis cars. And sooner or later, some of those shots are going to hit. And when they hit, that is when the Leopards come in, try to exploit the moment, and then Griffon is forced to smoke out or push back or give some ground or cut off his fire support for his infantry. And now 14 minutes in, this looks very decisively going in for Mix90 so far, though I'm sure Griffon still has a lot of tanks in here, and an overextension from Mix could actually change this, I think.
Yes, and maybe you can move through the north here, Griffon. That would be pretty interesting if we see a push through the northern sections into the rear there, and maybe try to get a cutoff onto the enemy spawn road. But the fights in the center are going terribly right now for Griffon, because Mix90 is really good at getting fire support into the pushes that he is attempting on the battlefield here right now. But on the other side, we don't really see that. On the rear line, we have a couple of cubes, Shilkas engaging and killing off a recon helicopter. M109 will try to get a kill here onto some watches still on the front line, failing to do so. MiG-23 ML staying behind all of this, whilst we have a decent amount of A109s here coming around again. And the tank force has lost all its support. Like, Griffon now rotating around here, but those tanks have lost all the infantry, and they never got around to do the fire support themselves. It just was never really working out, because they were always slightly outnumbered, meaning that if Mix90 positioned his units, one of them had a side shot, and that ruined the day of T-72s here time and again, whilst they just never were quite able to get the kills that they needed to actually keep this even for so far. And now you need to get back onto the hill, and getting back onto this hill is an absolute pain. BRM1 goes down in the north, so that was supposed to lead the charge in the north, and that means next BRM has to come up. We don't have a lot of support there. The northern push here starting to look pretty dicey for Griffon as well.
Yeah, it's like traditionally, if you wanted to play this conservatively, the red player would try to take the southeast zone of Echo. And instead, we saw Griffin position his forces into the middle to basically fight for the control of all three zones instead of trying to hold like a small angle beachhead. And the beachhead strategy is the more conservative one, and you don't want your enemy to be given that much space if they're playing an aggressive division like 16th Belgian. But even then, right now, thinking
Oh, big
those
fight on the
wide angle
north.
fights.
Leo 185 does get another good hit. Does smoke off again. Might disengage. The T-72 push. This is make or break now for Griffin. Griffin needs to make this push move. The tanks are rolling in. They are moving forward. This is the only armored advantage that he still has, but eats an A109 here from the side immediately. Shilka not quite far enough up with the tanks. Reservists here being super annoying. They only have the Blinder side, but the T-72s just don't really have that much support. The BMP ones only on the way in the rear. This has to start generating some kills, but Mix90 so good at avoiding taking losses and not giving the enemy anything to shoot at there right now, whilst there is only airspace behind it. Meaning that you have to get to another point here. Even that Leo 185 BE that went down is to 2 hit points, is still alive there, is potentially getting a side shot here on the T-72s once more. And this is really Griffin between a rock and a hard place. He has to make this work, but making this work might be possible with the amount of forces he has in some ranked games, but against Mix90, against the top of the ladder, against one of the best tournament players in WARNO history, this is going to be so tough.
Yeah, the Leopards are in, or actually were in peak sideshot territory. But right now, as the T-72s are going up there in the plateau, they are immediately driving into a concave infantry defense and tanks on all sides. Now, if only Leopard were microed a little bit more, Mix90, come on, the enemy is on the gate, on the door.
Ooh, Humvee totally with an interesting angle as well. Gets another kill against the T-72. And yeah, this edge is so annoying to push onto if the enemy is on the top of it. And there's 5 Leo 1s having every single sideline here, having every single angle. You can't push up the sill. Griffin doesn't have the flexibility right now, and he can't move up the sill. If he tries to move up the sill, he will die. And then there comes the Leo from the rear. Oh, no, Mix90 has it perfectly enveloped. This is an absolute disaster here. The TOW2 gets a hit as well. The Leopards did a perfect flanking. The setup is perfect, and there it comes. The victory for Mix90 here in game number 1. Griffin just not really finding a solution to Mix90's opener here. 16th Belgian getting another one on the scoreboard and keeping its insanely high win record and pushing it even a slight bit higher once more here as Mix90 with a really clean and amazingly microed game 1.
Yeah, like I'd say the ninth Panzer, maybe some other divisions, maybe another T-72 division that wasn't as conservative and slow as ninth is. Maybe it could have held the more daring middle position on the plateau, but looking at how that ended up going, I'd say the better choice would have probably been to secure the southeast corner to more defensible corner, and then force the enemy to try to like do attacks into a small region. What happened now was that there was a wide front line, which by the nature of aggression and the advantages you gained when you're playing aggro, meant that the Belgians were immediately given a really nice concave, and the T-72s were never going to fighting fairly, basically. And maybe those fair fights could have happened a little bit more with different positioning. And you know, I can't fault Griffin for trying, but it's Belgians really are kind of a tough nut to crack if you're going to try to do an opener tank attack.
Yes, and it also was Mix90 really taking this map with the knowledge about it and just knowing how to play on it and knowing how to pick apart armored formations in the center. I have played against Mix90 on this map before. I didn't last 19 minutes on it. I died way earlier to similar strikes of light tanks from him. I tried a similar push. It completely collapsed. And yeah, it was still really impressive that Griffin was able to hold out for so long on this. Hopefully, he is better prepared for Isura in the next one. And hopefully, he can get the ball rolling for his side. The matchup going to be quite interesting there as well. 5th Panzer versus 1st Canadian. Really interested to see how Mix90 is going to play the 1st Canadian. Will we see an air spam? Will we see a lot of light infantry? Gotta figure it out in a short after a short break. Mix90 on match ball. Griffin has to bring it back on Isura. Short break, and then we're gonna see if that happens. And we are on Isura, everybody. Game number 2 here. And Griffin is under pressure. Needs to get this one under his belt. As Mix90 on the left side here. Coming around with the Canadians. But before we jump in there, quick shout out once more to the Matcherino page, guys, where you can help out funding this whole event. And we still have 13 free codes to be claimed that add free 25 cents to the prize pool. And all you have to do is click the code in the chat and add the money here to the prize pool with that click. You can find it via the link in the chat right now. And also, big shout out to everybody who did contribute money directly. We are at $663 already. Let's see if we can reach the $1,000 for the finals, which would mean that I would do another 24-hour stream somewhere around December or January. So if you want to see me play a hell of a lot of WARNO, let's get us there to $1,000 ruse. Would also make it the biggest tournament prize pool in the WARNO series, so that would be pretty big as well. And yeah, let's see what we get here on the left side now out of Mix90 and Griffin. Whoever makes it through this game will be in the money as well. And this is a pretty conservative classic start from Griffin here. Well, maybe a bit many tanks, but on the other side, what do we have here for Mix90?
We have a 2-tank opener with some with 2 helicopters, recon helicopters, and 4 recon infantry units. I would say that this is reasonably recon heavy, but the Canadian recon as well as this Canadian recon is good, and this map you really get your money's worth out of them, especially. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a recon heavy attack. Importantly, there are no actual infantry units. There are Javelin AA missiles, and there's 50 cal. With the majority of the front line is going to be held up by vehicle ATGMs and the 2 Leopard C1s, as well as just 50 cals. The points are gonna be going somewhere, and I have a feeling they might be going into some planes. Like Griffin is gonna open first bears every time. It's pretty clear for Mix90, and the Jaeger Aufklärer are gonna be a decent infantry unit that Griffin wants to be bringing out early to hold the ground and to make sure that there are spotters for the massive amount of tanks that 5th Panzer can actually bring out. And oh wait, no. Yeah, now Mech CP Escort, the 11-man infantry squad, is coming in for Mix90, but as well as a reserve infantry squad. So I would argue extremely defensive and passive for Mix90, and it's probably because of this inherent forward deployment advantage that the Fernspare give.
Yeah, we also will see a good amount of fire support here from Griffin, but the main part of Griffin's attacks are the 5 Leo 1A5s and 1A1s that are coming with it. They are somewhere around the Leo C1. The C1 is weaker than a 1A5 because it has the weaker accuracy, but it is above the 1A1 because it has the better range and all. So the Leo 1A5, 10% more accuracy for 5 points. That is a pretty nice advantage. Both sides having 9 frontal armor, so slight advantage in direct tank fights for Griffon. But that's why Mix90 brought a decent amount of ATGMs, and they are always really effective against layer 1. So Griffin has to be careful on how he takes these engagements. Both sides taking a lot of support weapons as well. No link, no infantry here
Oh,
with
heavy tank.
the French ATGMs here for the Canadians. No,
Erix's.
yeah, coming around, and the Jäger of Terrors here, the Erics would be pretty helpful against the Leos and the Luxus if you get them into the right spot, but infantry fight wise, going to be interesting as well. Slight advantage for the first because they just have more units, but Jäger of Terrors and Co. leave the 5th Panzer with actually surprisingly good infantry for an heavy armored deck. And you have obviously way heavier armor on it. It's just that the enemy has great air spam against your Leo 2s and also has good ATGMs around the board, including in their AA tab that can hit you pretty hard as well.
Yeah, and the Leopard C1s being upfitted so heavily is also interesting. Like, then might be that there just isn't necessarily the tank spam capacity in the Canadian deck. So maybe the idea for Mix is that the tanks are going to be brought there immediately. They're just going to buy basically every tank to try to secure the mid game, and because of the fact that Canadians get excellent infantry and so many of their points need to be spent into the air, that Mix doesn't want to be buying Leopard ones all game. And that it's a tactic that armored divisions often do, is they upvet their infantry. So instead of spending points on infantry, they spend it on tanks. Might be seeing the same thing, but for airplay for Mix.
Yeah, slight point take here for Griffin, but nothing major. The Leo 1s here rotating around. Benchbear not quite in the right spot to spot the ITGM unit in the north, otherwise the Leo 1A5s could have gotten into range to deal with that. Aito gets another shot out towards the enemy, but we have a Jaguar 2 here around as well. That will one-shot a Leo 1, and it gets pretty close. Smoke last second there, saving Mix90. Bench Bears, supported by MGs here in the middle. Roland 3 comes around. Bench Bears rotated a bit. Now Leo 1C goes down. It's good smoke there from Griffin. Needs a bit more supply. But the tank advantage here already on the board just with the Leo 1s. Doesn't even need the Leo 2s. And I think the only Leo 1 section is a good choice because you don't want to give the air tab any super valuable targets. The Leo ones, losing them still hurts, but it doesn't mean the end of the world. And if you get the planes in return, it's a good trade for you. That's not the case for your Leo 2s. So you first of all need to get the Leo 1s on board, then the AA, and then let it follow up by the Leo 2s. Question is, will Mix90 give you that much time to set that up? And it seems like Mix is really starting to push towards Foxtrot. So let's see if Griffin can hold the line here.
Yeah, the reinforcements for Mix here are once again the same thing that was done in the last game, which is reserve infantry in the M113 50 cal transports. So the front line is going to be cheap, it's going to be effective, and it's going to be squads with a massing of 50 cals. The weapons team 50 cals have already been on the ground and seem to be doing a pretty good job here as far as you can expect weapons teams to do. But with Mix90 investing early into artillery and wanting to build a front line of reserve units, this is going to work well in trying to build up an air tab, and also once again probably wanting a wide front line of cheap Aito ATGM cars. Those are going to be the actual stop for any kind of armored gameplay if it ever manages to break through the front line of infantry. Now, one of the things with the Canadians are that they get a lot of Carl Gustavs, and the Carl Gustavs are really good against vehicles, and they are especially really good against Leopard 1s. They do 8 damage, so they can do 2-shot kills in the front armor. Yeah. Oh no, wait, they don't. They only do it against the Belgians. These ones have 9 armor.
Yeah, Leo C1 here in the north. getting attacked by the Jaguar too, but not getting hit. Good micro air from Mix90. Got one Leo 185 here killed as well, so the snowball got stopped a bit. Meanwhile, Zwilling in the south here, dealing with some infantry. They are still on the previous patch, so the Zwilling are a good bit better. That's why we see such a heavy play around those AA units here in these games. Another one of them coming in, the 7.6mm MG here, trying to hold against Macrakis here in the center. Fanspeer sitting around as well, as we have more infantry rotating in. 77 points on the board for Griffon in the playoff stages. Whoever has more points wins, but obviously 77 points, not really a major lead. So more good tank engagements need to be taken. Leo's pushing towards the Jaguars here, getting line of sight, getting to get a shutout and disengage afterwards. Aito coming around as well. That would be able to one-shot the Jaguar. Doesn't get the hit though. Good smoke from Griffon, but situation here dicey for both sides. Ooh, Leo C1 does go down to the artillery. It does get stunned. Can the final 155mm get the kill? No, it can't. It kills the infantry. It doesn't kill the C1. Lucky Mix90 there. As Fanspeer versus Reservist, the Fanspeer on good range there. Immediately getting the route on target, but revealing the position of that really important recon unit here. Really lucky for Mix90 that C1 Leo did survive. As the fight in the south, not really that active. A 50 cal versus a 7.6mm. A heavy stun on the 50 cal. It gets pushed back. And yeah, for now, frontline quite set up. And I think that favors Griffon. If Griffon can now get a bit more AA online and then start rolling out a couple of Leo 2A3, 2A4s. This is not the greatest map for long-range ATGMs, so the Canadians' best ground unit, or most popular ground unit at least, might not do all that much on this map.
Yeah, the mech rifle C6 still, in my opinion, a great unit. 3 machine guns and a Carl Gustav with 5.56 infantry weapons, the better ones. It basically it is an issue that needs to be dealt with largely with infantry, but the West German infantry doesn't get as many machine guns as the Canadian infantry, and West German forces also don't have as reliable and cheap infantry fire support as the 50 cals and the 50 cal carriers. But what they do get are the mortars, and the mortars are, with their autocannons, easily outrange the mech rifles as long as the mech rifles get spotted. And the Schwillings have, as we already seen, done a great job 1v1ing infantry units, but they're not really that mobile. So if any kind of fire support spots them, they're probably gonna be going out as they are now.
Yeah, Martyr here now getting shut down. Roland gets killed. Oh, this is dangerous. Every AA unit here getting killed means that the F-18 train might get closer, and the Leo ones here of Mix90 pushing through a good position. No easy side shot here, and Griffon's Leo ones in the north currently a bit isolated. The 1A ones currently retreating. Martyr might find a hit here, does so, but will pay for it with its life. And Griffon currently not getting any trades, not getting any kills. Here 105 coming forward, but you need to find some kills here. And currently Mix90 is the only one that gets some kills. Leo 185 CV under fire here. Has to be really careful, doesn't get a hit, doesn't disengage, goes down. And all the 3 Leos of Mix90 still alive. One finally goes down to the BO105, but currently disengagement heavily in favor of Mix90, who now can retreat with all the damaged infantry, can replenish them, as Griffon on the search for some kills, maybe at least can kill the forward infantry here with his tanks. Has to be careful to not run into Carl Gustav range though, as you pointed out. They are pretty potent against these units. BO105 goes down as well, and Mix90 did really well in this push here. They are 105 some Griffons, not finding the good tank engagements. Double hit on another one here. Griffon under a lot of pressure here.
Yeah, this is Canadians are great at abusing the enemy making mistakes because their infantry is so great and so good at holding ground, especially in these close engagements. They also get a bunch of pretty decent helicopters, including the AT rocket helis that we have not seen here. But those AT rocket helis, if they manage to get a good few seconds firing at the Leopard ones, could do incredible work here. And we've not even seen the Hornet bombers, and we have not seen the Hornets with the AT rockets. All of this is still under wraps, basically. Griffon doesn't know if they are in the deck. Griffon doesn't know if they have been bought already. Griffon only has to basically look at what he sees in the front
Oh,
line
ATGM
and
hits the
fill it
Leo
out.
185 leader again. And yeah, Griffon just doesn't get any kills here. Another BO 105 going down, and Mix90 is doing such a good job. And with the insanely fast repair speed that WARNO has, those units will be back on the front line quite quickly, especially as they are all up to 2 or 3 vet, meaning that their stress recovery is really quick as well. And the snowball, this is always the big uh, key to victory in Wano, even more so than, for example, in Steel Division, where damage taken is damage kept. In Wano, any unit that you can keep alive can go back to 100% efficiency again. And so that means every kill that you get where you don't lose the unit and where you can just drive it back, supply basically being free as you can sell it as well, snowballs quite hard. It's something that I feel like could be slowed down a bit by changing the repair speed or increasing the supply cost of repairs or something like that, because it allows for less comebacks than I would like to have. But currently, really well set up here by Mix90, keeping all those damaged Leos alive whilst he always picks up one Leo, making sure that he gets the kill. Like, that's why, for example, smaller artillery pieces of Wano aren't great, because they don't kill the enemy. Everything that doesn't kill is, in the end, in the long run, if the not that impactful. Because everything that just barely gets you over the line and kills an enemy unit is really, really impactful. So yeah, really strong lead here currently for Mix90 as he, oh no, gets the Ultis Phalanx as well. The amount of forces here on the front line for Mix90 is big. A lot of them are low on hit points, but as soon as the supply units come in and get them repaired, he will be ready again. And that means Griffon kind of needs to pick off some kills now. Gets a Leo C1 here now. Might be able to pick off the mech rifles, but he really needs to get some bloody kills on the battlefield here right now.
Yeah, we don't want to count Griffin off here, but Griffin's strategy of the Leopard 2A4Cs being kind of the tank force, and then Siegerungs and standard West German infantry kind of holding a front line. The problem is that there is so much Canadian infantry, and the helicopters on the back lines provide Mix90 with excellent spotting over where the heavy tanks are. And the artillery so far hasn't been doing great for Griffon. And the artillery here should be basically the constantly hitting and getting great hits to start winning these HE DPS fights for Griffon. The tanks cannot reliably do that, not just because of all the Leopard ones, Leopard C1s, and ITOs all around the place, but because any kind of an extended engagement risks the appearance of like 3 Hornets that could take out 2.5 tanks, and then suddenly the like good infantry of the Canadians could just start advancing because the fire support wouldn't be there to counter it. Right now we're seeing like the fire support is destroying 50 cal machine guns, and they are artillery is trying to snatch a few hits against the leopards
Oh,
here.
another leopard going down to the Ito. Leo 2A4 is trying to get some kills. Gepard's there, holding the north for now against mech rifles and M113s. Double M113 coming in, but they are too stacked and get stressed out quite quickly there. Jaguar not in a position to help out though. Next Leo 2A4 C formation coming up. 2 of them currently coming in from the rear. The issue is the AA situation here is not great. And I feel like the frontline currently is going decently for Griffin again, but he is so vulnerable to some airstrikes here right now. And Mix90 keeps up the pressure right now in the north. The Leo 2s, if they can stay alive, they can really generate some value here. And they are easier to be kept alive against ground units with the 18 frontal armor. They also have the potential to one-shot enemy tanks relatively quickly when pushing towards them, or at least get a lot of damage on them. But the really big issue is when does the air come in here for Mix90 and maybe start shooting them down. The next layer 2A3 here coming in for Griffin, moving around the 2A4 over the open field now. This can dominate the layer 1s on the other side. The Itos also not amazing against it. They do okay damage, but they won't just cap it. O2s would be a lot more impactful there, but they're not around right now. Leo 2A4 in the south has been retreated. Needs some supply trucks. Supply trucks for the northern one coming around, but yeah, the Leo 2A4 here are big. Issue is only that so many of the Leo 1A5s have died already. A couple of them as support behind them right now would be big, both for killing off infantry and just one-shotting enemy tanks.
Yeah, it seems like Mix's attack is going to be going for Echo now. It's the bunch of artillery fire getting sent around that parts, and also
Okay, that's a frontal hit. Leo 2A4C. No! Okay, this is for the 1A5. Doesn't get hit. The Ito positions here are really gnarly. Like, Mix90 is all setting up for side shots, basically. That's why he has so many Itos. That's why he doesn't use the Toe-2s. He is just trying to get some good hits from the flanks, and the Leo 2A4s and 1A5s are both really vulnerable to that. So they have to be super careful. Lots of 155mm artillery pieces here, trying to get some artillery kills in return. But the M109s are pretty active as well.
yeah, Griffin still the artillery of Griffin is aiming at these ITIL cars, and the ITIL cars have not been moved significantly, but also they haven't been resupplied. They're running out of missiles on southern flank at least, and Griffin has managed to build up a backline defense on the northern point of Echo. So the attack that Mix90 is going to be doing here is going to be outgunned pretty severely. It wouldn't have been a few minutes ago, but the Leopard 2A4 and the Jaguar moving in there has changed the game relatively here. I'm still just, if you look at, you can see that Mix90 hasn't been getting reinforcements for some time now. And I have a feeling those points might be going into the eventual big Hornet attack.
Yeah, we don't have any Roland 3s on the battlefield right now. That is massively worrying to me. No Rolands. The number of Gepards is nil as well by now. Yeah, all the AA, all the good AA that you get, and Gepards might be the best against the 40 ECM planes on the other side because they still reliably get hits on the enemy. But none of them here. Like a triple Gepard stack here in the middle, that would be no big investment.
Robotos.
We have a big investment here in the rear, as we have a couple of M113s coming in with reserve. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. M109s coming around. M109s trying to fire onto the front line here as well. Sicherungs will be targeted. And okay, this is only a bit of infantry, so it's only reserved. It looked bigger than it was, but Griffin just ignores the air completely right now. The air threat, and is completely flaying from the front line, and he maybe has to because he was falling a bit behind, but this is really playing with fire. And at some point, the F-18's gonna come, so at some point you also have to be ready for it.
Yeah, it's I think Mix90 playing a little bit more passively than you would expect, and that is because there seems to be some kind of a build-up that we are not privy to at the moment. The artillery on both sides is still trying to get kills, but neither side really getting anything amazing done, which is probably probably it ends up benefiting Mix90. Now, with a Panzermörser firing a smoke barrage in the Canadian front line, and an infantry force of pioneers and Siegerungs is moving in the middle position, and with so many tanks and a bunch of MG3s actually moving in here to provide fire support and HE damage, this might be it for Griffon, for Griffon's build-up, that is. The artillery hasn't managed to end or the threat of the ITOs. The ITOs are too well microed. And yeah, the front line is still solidly bunch of Leopard C1s, not getting microed perfectly here, but mech rifles do outgun the West German squads pretty well. And here we have them. 1, 2, and Voodoo.
Yeah, clusters getting some massive kills. AA now being bought, but obviously always buying them as a reaction, always kind of rough, because you also need to replace the ground units next to buying the AA, and you haven't killed any of the enemy planes, and those kills here with the clusters, massive. Leo 2A4Cs are hard to replace. You'd still get some Leo 2s, but yeah, just as Griffon was about to get something back on the ground here, they come along. And that also means now that Griffon's infantry is all overextended because the fire support that was supposed to be there for them just disappeared here. And 7.6mm MGs under fire, getting shot at here. Whilst we have the reserve and escorts here firing as well. Lux firing on the M113. Will get the kill there. Leopard C1 engaging against northern units as well. But 155mm artillery pieces, they are still busy. Point lead in the hands of Mix90 though, and the Leo 2A4Cs, they need to be protected. They need to get more Rolands and Gepards. 2 Rolands out now, you need way more than that to actually have a chance of realistically getting a kill on those massed enemy planes that will come around again.
Yeah, this is like the movement here for Mix90 is still pretty passive. We're just seeing more ITOs, more infantry getting sent into the front line, but it's very clear where the trades are going. And despite having only a slight under 50 point damage leadership, as long as the number of Leopard 2s is kept down, the inherent advantages of having good infantry and a bunch of fire support vehicles is enough for a win condition, I think. Like looking at the reinforcements for Griffon, it is Leopard 2s and it is Roland 2s. I think the damage is done. The damage is done. The momentum has been destroyed. And if Mix90 was somebody else, I could maybe predict that that there would be a risk of an overextension where the reinforcements could be maybe cut off and destroy this infantry push that we're seeing right now. The artillery is still here. The artillery is really close, and it is currently aligning to destroy this infantry. But with such a tank and anti-air heavy reinforcement line for Griffon, there is barely any infantry to actually recapture this zone, even if the artillery hits perfectly.
Yeah, artillery coming in, getting a good hit against the reserve leader, but the other one does miss. So the mech CP escorts here, the really strong 11 hit point units, will keep up the pressure. The Sicherung's decent at just tanking the damage, and there's a decent amount of fire support behind it. But yeah, the Rolands have to come around, the tanks have to come around here, and all of that is expensive, so affording the infantry in front of it is tough. The +2 is up, 16 minutes to go. +2 tick here, getting Mix90 now in a decent point lead, and we need more Rolands and Leopards moving forward. Leo 2A4Cs here, sitting in the north, chilling out right now, and they need to do more. Maybe a bit of a push through the open ground in the north could be an idea, though actually not, because then the planes just come and kill you. Like, this is a really big issue. You don't have a way of easily killing any of the planes and ever taking away the threat as fifth, because you don't have any fighters that actually can shoot them down. And that means you're You have to rely on your AA getting 1 or 2 of them from time to time, but that means you have to use them defensively. There comes the cluster bomber again. Okay, doesn't get killed, but also
Doesn't get the
doesn't get
monster.
hit. There comes the cluster bomber. Goes for the Leo 2A3, gets the kill, and 40% ECM working so hard at keeping this alive right now. Roland 3 not getting a shutout. Not enough gap arts here to reliably kill this, and another important leader tank going down. Currently, the Leopard 2s are doing a good job on the ground. They're getting a lot of kills. The point got captured back, but as long as the planes are around, those trades can be equalized by those things, and yeah, there might have been too many Gepards killed by now to have the reliable Gepard line here to actually shoot those down, and that is really worrisome, especially as the infantry numbers have been dragged down to the gutter as well, and 222 points here might be enough for Mix90 to win this. Still 14 minutes to go, but it's gonna be so tough to actually capture some ground again for the blue side.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I said, with Griffon managed to destroy that infantry attack with all those tanks and artillery, but there is no infantry left. There are barely even infantry reinforcements coming in. They are coming in martyrs, so the deck is not completely empty. But just the potential of Mix90 just getting back in the zone is massive, and there are still reservists. There are now the motor rifles. Erics are coming in. These are the ones with the massive penetration, short-range Erics missile. There are reservists. There are mech recce. It's the infantry attack is clearly the way to go here, and with just incredible amounts of ITOs. There are even N113 ITO carriers with mediocre stealth holding the front line. It's not really realistic for Griffon to win this with fire support alone, because they just can't destroy every missile before the missile destroys them.
Yeah, Leo 2A3 is slowly moving forward here, but there comes the reserve CV because there's just not enough infantry, more infantry coming up. But as long as the planes are there, it's not going to be easy to push, and in 13 minutes, he's likely not going to kill the planes in time to actually get anywhere here. 105mm trying to get the Sky Guards on the other side, but there's also now Eric's infantry on the battlefield, so even if you push forward, you still need your infantry screen in front of all of this, because otherwise you run 26 penetration missiles shooting at your Leo 2s, potentially getting side shots and just murdering you. And this is just going to be really, really tough. +2 taking up here, and the lead of Mix90 is getting bigger. We have seen some really good fights from Griffon on the ground here lately, but the early game lead just went a bit too far, most likely. Razid going down to the Erics. Erics in a really annoying spot here now. And the Zehirung's pushing towards it, trying to get into the buildings here. Panzer Grenadiers trying to push forward as well, but Panzer Grenadiers, good defensive infantry with the medium machine gun, with the sniper rifle. They absolutely suck at pushing things because both of those weapons can't be used on the move. So they have no DPS whilst pushing into the enemy. Battle rifle's not particularly great on the move either, as the accuracy goes terribly low in motion accuracy as well.
Yeah, and also not cannot be fired in touching distance in the same building. So 6-man squads with one of them having 6 assault rifles, one of them having 4. The 6-1 is going to win. Of course, in the latest engagement, it was the fire support.
Roland 3 here now also under artillery fire, getting killed off, meaning that stopping the air gets even tougher. More martyrs here coming around. And those martyrs with the Leos, with good line of sights here, could be helpful, but by now, Mix90 has so many forces that he can smoke behind all of this. +2 now, got 250 point lead already, 11 minutes to go. 155mm artillery trying to get the Leo C1 in the south, but gonna have a tough time there. Artillery is aiming, is trying to get some shots on target, but this is not really it. Iltusführung's moving in here, whilst we have the Leo 2A3 engaging towards the north. Cluster bombers coming around, get a Leo 2A3 hit. Black Voodoo, Electric Voodoo moving out. One of the planes going down. The Electric Voodoo actually surviving. TV moving back into the zone, reducing it to a +1. But there's just still so much meat to chew through here, and Mix90 can just throw mech rifles and reservists and stuff into the freighter and stop the enemy from actually getting any capture points back, and then throw a plane at anything that tries to move aggressively. And this is an issue with only 10 minutes remaining. Like, if this would be a long grind out game, still think Griffin's position here wouldn't be terrible with the modders with the layer 2A3s, but with him being under such a timer and still under a tick, the situation is a lot worse.
Yeah, and also having spent most of the efficient close range infantry, the Pioneer Carl Gustavs, the Seeker Rungs, which are 45 point units, but still 11 man, so quite effective in just holding the ground and keeping up a front line for the Martyrs and the Leos. And this constant rebuilding of the mech forces against these cheap infantry attacks, it could happen, but not with this level or lack of air defense. The air defense here is really is the key. I think Griffin was kind of lulled to sleep on not having to care about or fear the Hornets. And then when the Hornets came, that just all the points had been spent already. The you couldn't get back to the tempo of actually having a solid front line of air defense, and the stuff that you could get out there gets buzzed by the electric voodoo, gets targeted by the artillery, and suddenly you have one more massive issue to deal with.
Yeah, the plop here is moving around. Lux is trying to help in the south. Maybe you can rotate quickly towards Bravo, but once more, then the airplanes are a bit of an issue. So, yeah, you have to do something a bit more wild here, I believe, at this point. So weird charge towards Charlie and Bravo, or maybe just Bravo, and then from the south to Charlie. Of that could be some ideas, forcing the ITOs to rotate so that they actually have to maybe reveal themselves and get shot whilst doing so. It's just grinding frontal fights here, like that might get you some kills here right now. That might get you a bit of better KD, but it likely won't get you the more than 500 points that you will need here to get this victory back. And the layer 2s and martyrs here now rotating around. They seem to try to do a push here directly towards Charlie, not around the southern flank really, but just through their own zone here, just frontally in there. This likely won't work out because there are too many ATGMs in good positions immediately firing, and yeah, we see that here. Lux is getting picked off. There's a massive 5 ITO formation here. The artillery immediately trying to target them down, but there we go. GG is called, and Mix90 is moving into the semifinal as Griffin does tap out. And yeah, really clean, well executed games out of Mix90 here. Pure mechanic victories there with good positioning time and again. Like, this was not fancy strategy in either of these games. This was just, I will beat the enemy in the fundamentals, and Griffin has amazing fundamentals. Most of us would not have held out 10 minutes on this map against Mix90, and he did 32 minutes, but it was just not enough. And in the end, Mix90 will move on here to the semifinal.
Yeah, I just want to say, in the end, there wasn't 5 ITOs there. There were actually 10, and all of them holding just slightly different corners. The redundancy that Mix90 had in the anti-tank defense was just exceptional.
Yeah, a really job well done here by Mix90. And that means we have our 4 semifinalists. This I did throw away the okay. Division 1. There we go. There we go. Mix90 versus Griffin going to Mix90, meaning that Mix90 will face Stardeck in the semifinal, and the other one will be Stahlbrecher versus Babblegun, aka Scoof, and that will be in a best of 5 format. So at least 3 games in each of those, potentially going all the way to a game number 5. So this is going to be really exciting. I believe the better skill level currently from what we have seen so far is Mix90 versus Static. I feel like both of these players are insanely hot right now. But Scoof and Stahl did show amazing games as well this season and some really, really clean executions on some things, but they are still a bit clunky from time to time. Scoof, I feel like, is never you never quite know how he shows up. Like sometimes he is not in shape and you can beat him relatively easily for Division 1 standard. Sometimes he is just a murder machine like Pro Kami. Though Pro Kami has lately had some weak days as well. So they might be somewhat similar there. And then Stahl, yeah, just a bit better in stuff like airplay. And then the amazing ground gameplay can shine even more. But that is all critique on the highest of levels because they are here in the semifinals and they are here for giving us amazing games. So this should be a really excited one. And yeah, I had Mix90 down as my favorite, and I currently feel like I'm correct with that. But Starlight did double team in, so he can do it against Mix90 potentially as well.
Yeah, I would say my bets are on Skoof against Stahlbrecher, but not going to be a stomp. Absolutely not. Stahl, as we have seen here, absolutely has potential, but even facing against threatening and scary people with a lot of reputation, such as Fortitude Fence. And in Mix90 versus Stardeck, I would give it to Mix90 pretty solidly because I think Mix is one of those people with a lot of time and a lot of dedication on their hands. And Stardeck's stuff, despite experimental, is not as well honed as with some of the other players. Maybe it's because Stardeck doesn't have as much time to play. Maybe it is because some other reasons. But I my prediction is personally is Mix90 versus Scoof in finals. But I'm happy to see either Stahl or Stardeck prove me otherwise.
Yeah, going to be pretty interesting, and we gonna go in there when they happen. The Mix90 versus Starlight game most likely happening next Monday. The Stahlbrecher versus Bubblegum we will have to figure out as well. Until then, we gonna cover some games from the other divisions as well. So those are gonna be fun as well. And for now, we gonna send you over to the birthday boy as Jeremy, aka CX Sylvester, the birthday boy. Jeremy, maybe give him some gift there and wish him a happy birthday as well. Yeah, see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. This was a lot of fun, and I hope we see you in a couple of other great quarterfinal games for Division 2, 3, and 4.
Bye bye.